Woohoo! The broadcast is live. Here we are. We're waiting for Geoff. We don't know where he is. He'll be here sometime. Meanwhile, Scott's back and feeling better.
Yeah, much better. Did we mess up Gus's plans last week by only having two people?
But you're better. But you're feeling better, and you're even eating hot sauce.
Yeah.
That's true.
And Mr. Gretzky is back.
Don't look any better, but I feel better.
Awesome to be able to hear what Geoff has to say. Well, once he shows up, we'll hear what he has to say. Oh, man. I'm feeling warm all of a sudden. I don't know why. It's only 84 in here. So what do we got over there? 80.
It's 83 here outside right now.
Outside it's 79, but the sun's coming into the front window. I have the blinds down, so that's probably what's getting me so warm, is staring at that sun.
Yeah, I'm ready for fall.
Got another month or two to go. Zeus, Jupiter, and Odin, hello.
Doesn't take him long to adapt to however many people we have, does it?
Yeah. Jupiter. Jupiter is Saturn, right? No,
Jupiter is Zeus.
Jupiter is Zeus. Who's Saturn? Saturn is... There is the same Greek and Roman.
No,
there's a different...
There's supposed to be a different name.
I used to know years ago, but
so did I. That's why I'm asking. I used to know which was the Greek and which was the Roman name. Now I've completely lost track.
Yeah.
Whoa.
So since we're actually the same, one of us can be Quetzalcoatl.
The serpent god, the feathered serpent. That's it.
And we can do some ritual human sacrifices.
Always good. It's always good to keep those gods appeased with bodies.
Yeah.
Lots
and
of
levels
bodies.
the party.
Tech support.
Excuse me.
When the party is not going well, instead of playing charades, it's time for the human sacrifices.
I was like, who were the people? Was it the Celts who built those giant wicker man things and then set people afire in them?
Yes.
That sounds fun.
Giant
wooden cages. What was that?
Have you ever seen the movie The Wicker Man?
I saw one with Nicolas Cage years ago.
Yeah, that one's not that's the cheap.
Barely remember. Oh, that's right. Saturn was Kronos. Had to look it up. No, I thought Kronos was Kronos the father of Zeus?
Kronos was the father of Zeus, and Saturn is one of those gods who kind of predates the establishment of religion in Europe. You can find a version of the Saturn going back to Persia and stuff like that.
Oh, okay.
Kind of like Mithras.
It's like Apollo. Apollo, as the sun god, predates a lot of the mythological families that is a part of.
The Greek stuff, yeah. Mm-hmm. Apollo, Zeus.
Yeah. The version of Wicker Man worth watching is the one with Christopher Lee.
Okay. Okay, I may have seen an early 70s one, too. I don't remember.
It's kind of an odd movie. Yeah.
The Celts used to set people on fire, and then some people complained that the Romans came along and put a stop to it. Yeah. What have the Romans ever done for us?
The Romans liked their slaves alive.
Now, is it the Judean People's Front, or is it the People's Front of Judea?
I'm not sure this week. Since there are three of us, we can all have our own front. The Judea People's Front, the People's Front of Judea, and the people for the front of Judea.
Mix them up and match.
It's been a long time since I've seen Life of Brian.
Yeah, me too. It's been a long time since I've watched any Monty Python.
I don't know if you knew this or not, but just a trivia thing. I can't remember which members were involved, but members of both Pink Floyd and Led Zeppelin put up some funding so they could do Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
Ah, okay. Although I don't think I remember hearing that.
It's easy to get. It's easier to get a Monty Python reunion than a Pink Floyd reunion. That's for sure.
It's funny because for years and years it was Roger Waters that didn't want to do a Pink Floyd reunion, and now it's David Gilmour that doesn't want to do one.
Well, you had your chance. Looks like a Monty Python skit.
Here's a question.
That reunion you wanted. No, I don't feel like it.
Here's a question that popped into my mind. Monty Python has influenced comedy up and down, the strip.
Yeah.
All sorts of comedy has been influenced by Monty Python since it started.
Mm-hmm.
Any comic books influenced by Monty Python that you can think of? Or is it all Mad Magazine, which influenced Monty Python? Mad Magazine, by the way.
I mean, I'm sure that Monty Python has influenced different creators.
Yeah, but I'm just trying to think of any comic with a Monty Python sort of sense of humor.
The closest one I can think of is Rag Mop by Rob Walton.
I don't know that one at all.
Rag Mop is hysterical. It's one of the funniest things I've ever read.
Okay.
Well, it's also got a lot of other influences. I'm sure it's influenced by Douglas Adams.
Ambush Bug, maybe.
I was thinking Ambush Bug, but there's something inherently American about it.
Yeah, I mean, I like Ambush Bug, but I don't see a lot of Monty Python in it.
There's a chaotic humor to it.
There is. That's true. It does have a very chaotic, absurdist sense of humor.
But it's not especially it lacks that Britishness. It's too much in your face at times.
Yeah,
and the British have that thing about doing a joke while they're looking at the watch or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
There's that subtlety.
I could see a little more Marx Brothers in Ambush Bug than I can Monty Python.
Yeah, possibly. But I think there just aren't that many.
Yeah,
I'm trying to think of it. There's just not a ton of comedy comics either.
No. Not since the 70s. Yeah.
Right. Comedy's hard because think of all the TV shows and movies influenced by Monty Python, but not that many comics.
That's a good question.
You don't give the delivery the same way.
No.
Especially because since everyone reads the text differently, the delivery is never going to be the same way.
She-Hulk is another comedy comic, but I haven't read enough of it to know what She-Hulk's influences are.
You talking about the Byrne run of She-Hulk?
The Byrne stuff, yeah.
Yeah, it's just a lot of breaking the fourth wall.
Yeah.
I really don't. I mean, I read all that stuff when it came out, and I still have them in boxes. I don't see much Monty Python.
Not much Monty Python
there. Yeah.
Deadpool at all? I haven't read enough Deadpool to know.
I don't know. Deadpool is purposefully hijinks.
Yeah.
I just thought Ambush Bug did it first and did it better.
Huh.
Deadpool is definitely Marx Brothers. Not directly.
Right.
But you can establish a line fairly quickly.
But it's vaudeville. It's, pie in the face slapping.
Stooges.
The Far Side by Gary Larson? I think it...
Far Side is so much its own thing, it's hard to compare it to anything else.
Maybe I could compare it to the animated segments, the absurdist. But the Far Side is tough. I've been reading my... there's now a Far Side now is official website. So I've been reading Far Sides daily in my reading of stuff. So
is he still doing new ones every week?
No, a new one pops up once in a blue moon.
Okay, so it's not. regularly. Okay.
Right, but I'm reading but there's like 3 or 4 old ones a day up regularly. They post them new old ones.
Yeah, I have the complete Far Side box set. It's, like the giant one you don't want to drop on your foot.
Yeah, comic strips are so their own thing. I don't think they're influenced by much comedy outside comic strips.
Yeah, the Far Side especially is just so much its own thing. It's hard to compare it to anything else.
Yeah, Calvin and Hobbes too, brilliantly comedic, but I'd have a tough time comparing it to anything besides other comic strips.
Yeah, I mean, even other comic strips can be hard.
Yeah.
Because the humor that you had in something like Crazy Cat is a little different.
Right. Crazy Cat's the first thing you'd compare it to because of the drawing.
There was some influence. A lot of people made some comparisons about how much influence that Pogo had on Just Miss Bone, and I can definitely see that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, without a doubt. Pogo influenced a lot of stuff. Right. It's kind of forgotten now.
But as far as both the Far Side and Monty Python, they're their own thing. It's kind of hard to compare them.
Yeah, but Monty Python has influenced so much comedy in movies and TV that it's weird that it hasn't influenced comedy much. And I guess it's just too different a medium, the comedy.
Plus, I also think a lot of comics, that's where their influence comes from other comics.
Right. Like I said, and that is true, too. They don't... And like I said, it's tough to... Monty Python humor is so verbal, too.
Mm-hmm.
That, like I said, it'd be tough to write that in a comic.
I was trying to remember if Scud the Invisible Assassin had any kind of a... Not that I can remember. I can't really remember it having a Python-esque flavor to it.
No, there was one with a tragic element.
Tragedy! Blah, 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 blah. That's the only line I know from that Bee Gees song. So let me show you the first comic I got this week. Which I think Mind the Comics who said this was a Kickstarter originally. It's Tart, Toxic Origins. I picked this one up. Let me show you a little of the inside. I liked the art in it. Had some people that were was not Mind the Comics. I don't know. I'll have to look and see who said that. Someone on my commented on my pull list haul that this was one of their favorites, and it was a Kickstarter comic. Man, there's Kickstarter has been really good to indies, I must say, in terms of just getting, because there've been a few indies I've picked up over the last couple of years that started out as Kickstarter comics and ended up in the comic shop, which is good for me because I don't do a lot of Kickstarter.
Well, it's also people that had titles that have been published by other publishers and are now doing it themselves through Kickstarter. Yeah. Like, I did a Kickstarter for Simone and Ajax by Andrew Paperwhite.
This one is by Kevin Joseph is the writer, and Ludovic Saleh is the illustrator. DC Hopkins on letter. So I don't know either of those.
I still don't quite get why it's called Tart. It's not about pastries, and it's not about badly dressed women of loose morals. No.
Have you read this?
No, I've never heard about it.
No. Yeah, I don't know why it's called Tart either, because it's an origin story. And there's really a behind the scenes, or maybe there's other stories in this, and this is just the origin, or it's the setup for us, but it gives us the story of how the world works, how heaven and hell existed before the earth did. Okay. And then humans were created. I think God is they don't really know where God is, but there's a heaven and hell, and they just kind of were separate, going about their own business. And then humans were created with souls, which became currency for heaven and hell. So then it's kind of about after there's this little guy. I was like, who is that? Hot Stuff, the little devil? So it's about, they talked about how every so often a prince of hell was born, and they became, and they ended up doing their own thing, all the people in hell. And then one year that the little girl there with the paint on her, a princess of hell was born, and they weren't having that in hell, so they went to kill her, except they couldn't, and she disappeared. And then she showed up over the years opposing them. So this whole thing is kind of a story told to, I guess, when some people die, they're given a choice. They can come on and fight for heaven, or they can go to the eternal reward. So that this is about those people who choose not their eternal reward, but to fight for heaven in humans, I guess. Nice visually, pretty good. I'd buy another issue of it, except the one thing was it's a $6 comic. That's the one thing about those, but it's about 40 pages. So I'm okay with and I'm also okay with expensive indie comics. Indie comics are supposed to be more expensive than Marvel and DC. I've got a problem with Marvel and DC are the most expensive comics out there. I mean, it's kind of like, what's the point of that?
Right.
But there's lots of nice visuals in here. There's that girl with the paint on her. But I have no idea why it's called Tart. As far as I know, there's no character called Tart. I don't remember the main character was called Tart here, so I don't know what that name's about. Did they give us her name? Translated from a dialect that died out thousands of years ago. I don't know why they did.
No, what I like is that they're translated from a dialect that died thousands of years ago, but then they use modern idiomatic expressions in the English translation.
Here's a great page where the denizens of hell discover that they can torture all those human souls. Hey, look at this. And that became their point. We can
That's
torture
when Top 40 radio was invented.
Yeah. Oh, and I just noticed there's a cupcake on top of the T in the logo.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess it does have to do with pastry, the name.
Is that a one-shot or a mini-series?
I don't know what it is. It says back here, it's a Scout comic. Tart will return September 2021. It says back. I don't know if it's a second issue. I don't know if that's another special, a different. Like I said, this one's called Tart Toxic Origins. Maybe it'll have a different name. Who knows?
Well, maybe with the logo, the production department screwed up and made a copy and paste error.
Tart. And that just reminded me. Hold on. Whoops. Let me run and get my Comic Shop Weekly for a moment. I'll look something up in it.
You already put the Comic Shop Weekly away. And now he needs it.
They have the Jeopardy music going on.
They mentioned, let's see. Do you know the comic The Beauty? Indie comic. Hasn't been an issue in about a year or so. I think it has about 25 issues. It's been one I'm buying. Jeremy Hawn. They said his name is Jeremy Haunt here. Jeff's on his way. I don't know why they say his name is Jeremy Haunt. I think it's Jeremy Juan. I can't remember now. But he was one of the main forces and writer. He's an artist too, but he wasn't drawing it on The Beauty, which was about a venereal disease you catch that makes you beautiful. So people were trying to catch it. And then the comic took place like a few years later when it was starting to kill people because people didn't know. There was like a few side effects to it, but they were minor compared to how beautiful it made you. So it was an interesting, and they did a whole range of stories. Like they do a gangster story, a romance. They do a conspiracy story. So different stories. But here we have, they bring the beauty saga to an end in The Beauty, All Good Things, a 48-page finale. And I'm like, is that going to be a separate issue? Or I'm like, is that going to be like The Beauty number 27 or whatever they're on? Or is that going to be a completely separate? I'm like, I could, if I don't notice it and order it from my comic shop, I just could miss the last issue. They did that with another comic. Oh, I can't remember what it was, where they put out the last issue in a new series of the comic. And it was like, oh, what was that? It was like just a few years ago. It was an indie comic. And if you didn't know it was coming out and order it, you were going to miss the last issue of it. I cannot remember what it is right now, but they actually did that. And I think The Beauty is going to do that too. I'm like, what the? But it's a good series. You should check it out. I think they had some solid teams on it. And Bill Willingham returns to Batman. Batman versus Bigby.
Versus who?
From Fables.
Oh,
yeah.
The Big Bad Wolf.
Yeah, that's what I said when I read this too. I was like, Bigby, because that doesn't sound like a Batman villain name at all. Then I read it was Willingham from Fables. I was like, oh, that's right. He was a Fables villain. He was the big bad wolf in the Fables.
No, he's Fables good guy.
Oh, it's Fables good guy. Pardon me.
Yeah, Big Bad Wolf. The Big Bad Wolf. I'm not sure if it's still a spoiler, but he marries Snow White and they have kids.
Yeah, I read the first volume of Fables, I think, and that was it. Maybe the first 10 issues in one of those oversized hardcovers.
I'd read good things about it, but I've never actually read it.
It was solid. It was a good, solid comic. I just didn't want to read a ton of it, kind of thing. It was like I moved on to other stuff. He's the security guy for the other Fables. Ah, okay.
That thing lasted for over a decade, and I think what was worse, it wasn't that it lasted for over a decade. It's that it had a spin-off.
Yeah,
and the spin-off was nowhere near as interesting.
Ah.
And they tried to be clever about it, and that's the problem when you try to be clever instead of entertaining.
Yeah, most of the Sandman spin-offs haven't been anywhere near as good as the original ones.
It's funny. I still remember. What's his name there? Bill Willingham from the Dungeons and Dragons ads on the back of. That's where he first caught everybody's attention.
That may have actually been his first published work.
Yeah, those were some. They were nicely drawn. I remember, noting them all.
Back in the I don't know, maybe early '90s or so, he did a 3-issue series called Coventry that was really good. It was an indie book, but it was 3 issues, and then it never got finished. It was just kind of left hanging.
Yeah, I can remember. Sometimes getting some mediocre Marvel late 70s, early 80s comics and going, wow, I wish this Dungeons and Dragons ad was the comic.
Isn't it funny that you're more anticipating the ads in some of the old books than the actual content of the book itself?
Some of those, pretty mediocre stuff you could get.
The catchphrase was "Doorway to Adventure." Those ads.
But this is one of those comic shop news that's mostly order numbers, so there's not many articles in it.
I remember when comic shop news used to be on newsprint.
Well, it's on glossy newsprint.
Yeah, I was going to say it's on glossy paper these days, but yeah.
which doesn't catch fire very easily.
That's
I
good.
tried using some of it to start my what is that, charcoal chimney.
Yeah.
It wouldn't catch on fire. Not like newsprint that goes right up. It wouldn't catch on fire because of all the gloss on it. It's like there's more gloss than paper.
I'm sure that gloss probably has chemicals in it too that you don't want to be breathing.
Yeah. Bigby, a wolf in Gotham. Oh, let me show you. I'm going to show you one of the books I got out of the. I got 6 books out of the library just today.
Yeah.
Supreme, the Alan Moore Supreme.
Gotcha.
You know that collection is expensive because it's been out for a while. You should probably steal it.
I saw that they had it, and I was like, I'm getting that one because I know it's expensive. But I remember now why I didn't get it way back when. Is because it looks like some of it was printed directly from scans of the comic.
Yeah.
Some of it, the printing is fine. Some of it, you're like, oh, they just scanned in the comic. That's kind of crazy. What year did this come out? This came out. It's Alan Moore. Well, I don't need to know. 2002. Checker Book Publishing Group.
Yeah,
they put out some.
Checker is notorious for not having great printing quality.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Look at let me see if I can get this across. It's like that. Those are shot right from the comic. You can see the little color dots and things in it. Probably can't see it over the video, but
yeah.
But it's like you can tell this is not good printing. It's like this shot right here of Supreme looks like a photocopy. Looks like a second generation photocopy even.
Gotcha.
And I remember that's why I didn't pick it up back in 2002 because I wanted to read it, and I have some of these issues, but the printing on the issues is better than the printing in this book.
Right. Yeah. The reason that that's expensive is that book has been out of print for so long, and a lot of people want to read it.
Yeah, because it's Alan Moore and I'm Supreme Great, and I'm not sure if this is one of the I'm not sure who owns the rights to it.
Yeah, might be something to do with that thing when Liefeld sold the rights of his comics to a Scott Mitchell Rosenberg toady.
Or maybe Alan Moore could have the rights to it, his own stuff. I don't know. You would think somebody would reprint this.
Yeah.
It's got Alan Moore and Rob Liefeld's name to it. Not to mention Alec Ross covers, Joe Bennett, Rick. You could make some money reprinting this. So it's got to be a rights issue.
Mm-hmm.
Could be.
Oh, God, the printing on this is terrible. Or maybe they don't have the files.
The original.
Maybe they lost the files. That's why they printed this one from scans of the comic.
Yeah, I have some other reprint volumes that are done by Checker, and the printing quality is just never great on those.
I mean, these are scanned right in. You would think they would, you'd do that on a comic from the 1940s.
Right.
Not a comic from the 1990s.
Yeah.
And this one comes from the Port Jervis Free Library. What's cool about the modern age of libraries is I went on the website and I put in Alan Moore's name to find some things I haven't read by him. And then if they're at other libraries, they ship them to you. There's Geoff.
Hello to all. Sorry for being late.
Oh.
Sorry, don't feed the chickens, mister.
No, it doesn't. No. Actually, I was feeding chickens.
That's just a saying to me. He literally feeds chickens.
Yeah, that's what I was doing. I was down getting my chickens. I left them with a chicken sitter for a week, and I went to go pick them up.
Chicken sitter.
Yeah, he did a good job.
Chicken sitter.
And that's because you just came back from an actual Comic-Con, didn't you?
Yeah. I went to Comic Palooza down in Houston. It's pretty cool. Yeah, had a good time.
Did you man a table?
For you, isn't it?
Yeah. I had a table. We did pretty well. The crowd was great. It's one of the best crowds I've seen at a comic book show forever. So yeah, it was a good time.
Wow, that's not hard in the last 18 months or so, but
No, not much to compete with. But yeah, we'll find out. I figure out if I get COVID from a comic book convention, it's got to be Gamma COVID.
some special version that'll make you turn
Gamma ray COVID. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
What
it was a good time.
Do you have a sample of the comics you were selling there with
yeah, hold on.
Show them to us. Let's see, because he's got some comics he was working on. I think he did them a couple of years ago, and they just got printed, right?
Yeah, I did some comics work, and then I did War on Christmas, the first.
Oh, he's got War on Christmas. Oh, War on Christmas is printed.
Yeah, I printed the first issue, and went down and sold it. It was very, very instructive. Back to the drawing board on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry. You're not going to do a Kickstarter for it now?
I think I'll still do the Kickstarter, but it's not. It's a harder project to sell than I was hoping. Sometimes you have a project that turns out to be easy to sell, and then sometimes you don't.
What did you say it was? A story about a stripper?
A stripper and an elephant. Yeah, it's a story about a stripper and an elephant. And the elephant doesn't even really appear in issue 1. Everybody that's read the comic really likes it, but it's difficult to get people to read it just because, the first issue is just such relentless bad things happening, like one bad thing after another bad thing after another bad thing, and you don't really even meet the elephant until the end of the issue. So I brought it back and I'm retooling it to make it a 40-page issue 40-page issue. And so the story gets to a little more natural of a stopping point. I don't know what I'll do with it.
Oh, so that's going to be a special first issue.
Yeah, exactly. I think I'll leave it as it is, and then do another. I don't know. I mean, it's going to be
Dumbarella.
Yeah,
there's a name.
Those guys are all right. Yeah, I see them at Comic-Con all the time. I don't know if they still do it. It's really amazing how few comic book creators there were at a comic book show.
Well, yeah.
I don't think there was more than 4 or 5 tables that out of 300 tables. I don't think there were more than 4 or 5 that were selling comics.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
What were they selling?
Well, the people to the left of us were selling vinyl stickers, and the people to the right of us were selling pencil drawings or prints of pencil drawings, sort of like poster type stuff. So yeah, posters and stickers. I mean, like I don't know. I think that a lot of it was just that the audience that we had was bored. Everybody'd been stuck inside for a long time, so they wanted to do something.
So it was more like a pop culture flea market.
Yeah, exactly. It'll probably be a long time before I see another show that's quite that well attended. I guess maybe we'll get a few. I don't know. Like I said, I'm waiting to see if I got COVID or not. I'll find out in a week or two whether I got gamma COVID from it, and that'll decide one way or the other. But I'll tell you, I saw a lot of people.
Yeah.
None of them wearing masks. None of them coughing. I saw lots and lots and lots and lots, thousands and thousands and thousands of people. And right outside the convention center is downtown Houston's urban playground and splash pad. So if you don't count the thousands and thousands of people inside the building, there were thousands and thousands outside too.
Wow.
So, yeah.
That reminds me of a story. One of the only cons I did when we were my friends and Ed Murr, John Bly, and I were selling our book. We did Pittsburgh Con, 1997, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
It was like the height of the collapse of comics. No one was interested in comics. It was bad. So, but that's when we chose to do that was the time we had to do our self-published book. So that's when we did it. And we went to a Pittsburgh Con. And it wasn't always, it's like nobody at the con was interested in comics. people would, and it wasn't just us, it was like everyone there. They were interested in like 3 or 4 people getting their autographs, and that was about it. And they'd walk by all the booths like with their eyes averted. Because it was like they didn't even want to look at the people in the booths. It was terrible, except for across the way from me was this little group who made their own mini comics. The 3-Legged Black Cat Society, I think their name was. There was this one girl. I have photographs of them. I probably wrote the names on the back of photographs, but I can't remember them now. But there was this one girl. She was probably 23, 24. Her boyfriend was about that. Her boyfriend was like a semi-famous mini comics guy who did like one famous mini comic that everyone wanted him to do more of, and he was like, yeah. But they had a whole table full of mini comics. And their mini comics were, if you remember at the time, you could get like photocopy paper that had like holograms and stuff on it. Because you remember the early 90s, hologram covers and everything. They were doing the mini comic version of that. And they had like whatever little mini comics they had with shiny covers, and they were the only ones in the whole place. They're $2-3 a piece, whatever they were. They had people constantly coming up and buying stuff, and I was chatting with the woman the whole time, and she said, and I'll still never forget what she said to me. I like it, the only one selling anything in the whole con. She's like, if you learn one thing from this con, it's that women love shiny things. And I went,
yeah.
There you go, because everything on their table was shiny, and women, guys too, on occasion, were just buying stuff left and right from them. It was kind of crazy. I was like, wow, I need more shiny things to sell at my table.
I guess we all need more shiny things in general.
Yeah.
Yeah, you missed out on doing a Platinum 3D holofoil cover.
Yeah.
I actually do have a foil cover. Which is nice. It didn't sell any better for it. It got people to, it felt like it got to the table, but like I would have thought that people would have wanted to buy the foil and the metal covers, and they didn't. They were good to have, but people weren't buying them for themselves.
No. King Spode's going to the Savannah Comic-Con tomorrow. Okay.
Nice.
I got a mental image of Matt Feazell doing a mini comic with Cynical Man. A hologram now.
Oh yeah, man! I missed that Matt Feazell. That was great. I love Cynical Man.
I just got my pro acceptance to the New York Comic-Con, so now I can pay $85 and go, as opposed to when it used to be free for pros.
Yep. Yeah. When is it?
October.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the industry has changed, and at this point, like the conventions, the main audience of the conventions are the artists. That's who really shows up. So they got to take your money, otherwise they wouldn't have any. Yeah.
And the next comic I got this week was the 3rd issue of Time Before Time. Our time travel hijacked time machine story with there's 2 factions who have time machines who are kind of fighting each other, and they're from different times. And they're fighting each other for domination of time travel. Meanwhile, they also rent time machines to other eras. So it's a real kind of zany time travel. I mean, there's interesting stuff. The first issue I think was all set up and was like the tightest, best issue. But now I enjoyed the 2nd and 3rd issue too. But this one, the art seemed it read fine, but there seemed to be a lot more blank backgrounds in this one.
Yeah. Yeah.
People arguing in blank. I mean, they were held captive in a very Mike Mignola-ish art too, but sometimes it's like
somewhat, yeah.
are
Yeah.
the two factions Bird and Lime.
Are they what?
Bird and Lime. Those guys rent electric scooters to run around town like an idiot.
Nope. I don't even know what their name. I think they're years. They're like 2038, 2090. Yeah, they're in different years. And there's betrayals and it's been a fun 3 issues. There's another one. It's like so many indie comics. I don't know if they're continuing or limited comics.
Right.
Throwing it up all with sticks.
Yeah, who knows? But I don't think I have any post-apocalyptic comics this week.
That's different.
I'll be right back. I'm sorry about that.
He'll be right back.
Well, with time travel, you always risk wiping a civilization out of existence.
Yeah, I don't know. I think they've got. I haven't figured out the exact rules to this time travel. I think there's just one timeline, and it's the Robert Heinlein time travel, where you can't go back in time and kill your own grandfather because it didn't happen. So you have to be sneaky about your time travel and kind of keep it on the down low. Otherwise, it'll mess. Yeah, I'm not sure.
I like Star Trek a lot better when it had less time travel than Doctor Who does.
Well, the problem with Star Trek is they change their time travel rules with each story. First, you can't change the past, then you can. And depending on which Star Trek story you're watching, I mean, that first one where Kirk wanted to save, who was it, Joan Collins or somebody?
Yeah, Edith Keeler.
And he couldn't. Yeah, and he couldn't because he couldn't change time. And the next thing you know, they're in the evil universe. It's like, what? Well, because, time split. It's like, huh?
Well, the evil universe was a time travel thing. It was just a whole different
It was a
parallel universe.
The point of departure was much earlier, and as far as I can remember, it wasn't even the humans who caused the point of departure. And then we had the whales thing in Star Trek 4. And now we have the Kelvin timeline, and everything is broken.
Oh, timelines! You're nothing but trouble.
They are. They're just.
What was worse? They almost messed everything up in Star Trek Insurrection. Because they went in and met their favorite person ever.
What do you mean almost?
I can't remember the last time I watched a Star Trek movie. It was a long time ago.
There's more coming.
Yeah, I gave up on Star Trek. Star Trek was what made me realize it was just a brand. They were just selling me marketing. Because nobody that had anything to do with the Star Trek I like was still around. No writers, no directors, no actors. Star Trek is just a brand now that they plug anyone into and expect you to like because you liked Star Trek 40 years ago. It's like, well, it's not even the same thing.
Well, Gene Roddenberry was still there. It was still Trek.
Yeah.
But when they started with DS9, that's after Roddenberry died, you can tell that it was just milking it, especially because you knew that it was done as a spin-off because TNG was successful. Let's do another Trek show.
Well, it just becomes a brand.
Right.
Yeah.
But
Well,
one
cool,
thing about DS9 is because it was actually heavily influenced by Babylon 5.
Right.
And they got some really good writing.
Yeah. I'm just saying, I'm not going to buy something just because of the brand. You've got to get me interested in it because of what it is.
Well, at that point in Star Trek canon, they already had 2 ships at the time. They had 2, maybe 3 shows that were ships bravely going where no one had ever gone before. They had to do something that was slightly different.
Right.
I agree that Deep Space Nine isn't wagon train in space. It's more like Gunsmoke in space. But
one of the best explained time travel stories is from EC's Weird Science issue. where a man almost hit a hitchhiker. The hitchhiker being the same person as the driver of the car. Wow. Huh.
Time travel is real hard to deal with.
What was that?
Time travel is real hard to deal with.
It is.
It's one of those things
like Gene Roddenberry.
It's like a good post-apocalypse. If you can do a good time travel story, you can tell it.
I saw Leonard Nimoy speak at Virginia Tech several years ago, but I didn't get to meet him.
What I want out of a time travel story is you to make up the rules and stick to them. That's all. Yeah. You don't have to make them that complicated.
Yeah, and there's only been a couple of works that have ever actually done that. I mean, I guess was the Interstellar where Matthew McConaughey turned out to be his own daughter or something like that?
I haven't seen it.
Yeah,
not seen
it. People said that was good, but the only really good time travel stuff I've seen in movies was, Primer.
Yeah, that was probably my favorite too.
Which one?
Primer.
I think it's actually Primer. I'm not sure.
Primer.
What it is knowing a primer is the paint you put on to prime before painting.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And primer, which some people call primer because they don't know it's called primer, is a book that introduces you to something.
Yeah, right. That's a very British term.
Prim and proper, as it were.
Right.
But I notice people don't know primer, even when they mean primer.
Well, the movie doesn't happen in. I mean, they never say the word primer, so you might be right, but it happens in San Jose, right? Like it happens in a tech guy's garage in California. So
yeah,
it's going to be said with a California accent. But yeah, I watched
the only reason I thought it was called primer is because it was kind of an introduction to time travel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
more than primer, which is. Primer is also the gunpowder in a bullet or something. So,
but,
I think I read. I think I only read one issue of Chrononauts. It was okay, but it was. I like buy every other Mark Miller story.
Yeah, that's one way.
And that was kind of an other one.
It's kind of like Star Trek movies. Every other one is good.
I will disagree with that, but I feel that the every other Star Trek theory overlooks the first and the third, which in my opinion are very good films. And the fifth
I like the first movie. I know a lot of people don't, but I like that.
That's because it's an awful movie. One, people have been defending that. I've met so many people who defend the movie, and I think they're just doing it on some weird principle.
No,
they're not doing it because it's a good movie. They're doing it because they think they have to defend it for some reason.
Here's why the first movie is good. I can explain to you exactly why the first movie is good. Because it's 2001. It's Kubrick's 2001, but with characters that you care about.
That's a bore.
It's so much better than 2001, though.
2001 can be a bore.
Die Hard was the best action movie ever.
Which was?
Of course.
Oh, yeah. I believe that someday computers will evolve to the point where we can fix Star Trek V, and we can make that a good movie. It's going to be hard. It's going to be a long time in the future. Like, we're not there yet. But
right. I mean, there is a better version which just has 2 hours less footage in
it. All you need is the line.
Fix Star Trek 4.
Excuse me, why does God need a spaceship? Which one was that in?
That's 5, yeah.
That's 5.
That saves the whole
movie. With a photon torpedo. That's important.
And you know, it's funny because about 7 or 8 months before that movie was made, that plot leaked out in the National Enquirer.
Yeah.
And we all read it. It was like, there's no way it can be that. And we're sitting here in the theater watching the movies like, holy crap, they were right.
Yeah, it was, but they didn't make it good. Radiant Black.
The next comic I got this week was Radiant Black, issue number 6. And you know what? I think I could call this one a fill-in issue. It was good because the regular artist wasn't there. What's his name? Paolo's cousin, Marcelo Costa. He wasn't there. We had instead Darko Lafuente. That sounds like a pen name.
Yeah. Watch that be his middle name.
Fire or something.
Yeah, that's gonna be my name if it's not.
That's like Dark Fire or something.
Yeah,
I don't know.
That's pretty cool.
Oh, and the colorist is Miguel Muerto.
That
Michael Death.
That are these pen names? What's going on
no,
here?
that might be a real name.
That might be a real name.
Yeah, we have. If you look through a phone book in Spanish or Italian, you're going to find some very funny names.
Okay. Well, maybe Darko Lafuente's parents were real big fans of Donnie Darko. That movie's old now, right?
Yeah.
How old? What year did Donnie Darko come out? The 90s?
I want to say something around there. Yeah, 98, 99.
I've never seen it. Probably never will.
2001.
That was one of those movies.
That's right. It came out right around 2011. It came out right around 9/11.
Okay.
It was. There was something weird about it. It was in the theater when 9/11 came out, or something like that.
That was one of parents could have had a kid, named him Darko, and he could be 20, 21 years old now, coloring comics.
At the show, I met a girl named Trinity, and she was 22 years old, and I was like, "Your mother didn't," and she's like, "Oh yeah." She sure did.
Please tell me she had two sisters.
I didn't ask.
Donnie Darko director's cut is amazing. He explains the movie well. Okay, because I saw Donnie Darko many years ago. After it was pretty well known as a cult film, and I just couldn't get into it. Any opinion I have over 10 years old has expired because I can't remember why I didn't like Donnie Darko anymore. I just remember that I didn't like it, so I'll have to check out the director's cut sometime.
It's technically a time travel movie.
Yeah, I think there's two reasons that I'm not going to watch that movie, and they're both actors.
Patrick Swayze and
Ding Ding Ding, and the other one is Drew Barrymore in that one?
Yes.
That's the other reason.
She's in Donnie Darko?
Not a fan of either one of those two.
I don't remember either of them being in Donnie Darko.
Although,
but anyway, this issue
does voiceover work. She doesn't bother me at all.
In the first 5 issues of Radiant Black, a couple of times, he fought this other person it's the same kind of costume, but it was red. And this is the story of her and how she was just a regular and much like Radiant Black, where this like orb came near and he touched it and it put him in the costume and gave him superpowers. He like stopped her from robbing banks, and we like got her story, and we've also gotten the story that Radiant Black is supposed to. Yes, she's an English teacher in it too, in a small town. They're supposed to fight off some giant alien or something. We've learned that since. But this is her story of, she's a small town English teacher, and she finds out her fiance has a gambling problem and has not only gambled away all of his own savings, he's gambled away their house. He's gambled away her savings.
Mm-hmm.
And so then she's, of course, having a crisis about it because she just found this out. And this glowing red orb shows up, shows up and turns her into, I guess, radiant red. And she decides to solve their money problems by robbing a bank. And that's this was sort of one of the, I get it's a filling issue explaining who this character's backstory, but it was pretty well done. I enjoyed it, but I'm guessing that they're giving the regular artist a break so he can catch up on the story arc.
So it's kind of like Breaking Bad. A teacher gets access to something.
Superpowers,
becomes a villain.
Yeah, that's a great American subplot right there, isn't it? Teacher becomes monster, gets rich.
But it reminds one of my favorite gambling addict lines. There was a show in the 90s, a British show that was really good called Cracker.
I've heard of it. I've never seen it.
Really good show. What was it? Robbie Coltrane? Was that the guy? Really good actor. And he was a police psychologist. And of course he got the name Cracker because he cracked the criminals. But he was also a gambling addict. And I think he was separated from his wife at the time because she couldn't take his gambling addiction anymore. And they're having an argument once because he just lost more money gambling. And she just said to him, "Did you have to pick something so bloody endless?" And I was like, you know what? That's true about gambling. It is endless. You could just keep gambling away your any money now, any money in the future, any money till the end of time. But I also always liked, who was it? Norm Macdonald's comment on gambling when he said, "It's the only addiction where you can win money."
He's not wrong.
No. Oh, and you probably won't in the long run. But
God, that reminds me of, there's two guys I knew in college, and one of them had invested in the stock market and lost a lot of money, and he made like 90% of it back.
yeah.
My other friend was convinced he's a genius. He got all this money back. But it's like, he still lost over $10,000. That's not what I call being a genius.
No, you don't think so? Wile E. Coyote, super genius. I'll have to show you another of the books. It was a big library week for me.
Yeah. Speaking of Wile E. Coyote, why didn't you just take all that money that he spent, on Acme products and just bought dinner with it?
Mm-hmm.
It was the principle of it. He wanted to best the Roadrunner, and he was gonna. As you know, I've been on from the last couple of shows, I've been on a Great Gatsby kick ever since I got that first issue of the Great Gatsby.
Well, legally speaking, you can be.
Yeah.
No one can stop you. It's public domain.
Public domain. That's why they started doing a Great Gatsby comic, and I got the first issue of it. And since I've reread the book in annotated version, I've watched a bunch of videos, and I've started reading a new book that I think I mentioned last week called Careless People. It's about kind of the history of the Great Gatsby. But that led me to look on Amazon and find there was another Great Gatsby graphic novel from last year, which I didn't know existed, because I think last year Gatsby became public domain in 2020. And sure enough, we've got. I was like, it was like $17 on Amazon. I was like, let me see if they have it in the library. That led me to, and unfortunately, this one is not drawn by one of the top artists of Portugal. It's not terrible drawing. That the when I showed off the one I got the first issue of. There's some of the art. The environments are not bad, but the faces are kind of passive and with no expression.
It reminds me of that guy who drew The Little Prince.
I can see that.
Yeah.
I've only read a little. I just got it this afternoon. I only read a little of it. And so far, like I said, the faces need more expression.
Yeah.
Is the big drawback with it. Because I a few weeks ago or a month ago when I bought the first issue of the Great, I picked it up and I thumbed through it because, sometimes with indie books, you expect art that's a little, not all the way there yet. That's just the way it is with indie books. And I picked up that Gatsby and went, wow, this is good stuff. This guy knows his stuff. And then Paulo told me he's one of the top comic artists in Portugal. And I was like, you can tell.
Usually working for Marvel.
Yeah, usually working for Marvel. He did a nice job. But what's interesting is it's illustrated by Aya Morton and text adapted by Fred Fordham, which led me to Fred Fordham, who's also an illustrator and cartoonist, did a To Kill a Mockingbird graphic novel. And he looks like I like his art.
Yeah, that's got some
better
stuff.
better than the Gatsby art. I mean, his art has some expressive faces.
I'm getting a vibe of both European art and manga kind of mixed together in that style.
Yeah, it looks like 250 pages or so. That guy's doing a lot. Wow.
Yeah, that's probably why he chose not to do the Gatsby one and just adapt it. Have someone else draw it. Let's see, how many pages is this?
Yeah, I'm going to do War and Peace, and I'm going to have this other guy draw it for the next 80 years.
Yeah.
270 pages. That's a big one, but two classic novels as graphic novels I picked out of the
I guess he's always dreamed of having children be assigned to read his work.
Yeah.
And he's like, this is the bit. This is it.
This is my chance. Who's publishing these?
Oh gosh, I remember
HarperCollins.
Yeah, you talk about people being assigned to read work. I remember I was in English class in high school. Of course, you have the book. They give it to you at the beginning of the year, and we got to the section on Great Expectations, and that was some of the most boring stuff I've read in my entire life. Like, they may have had great expectations, but they did not have great results.
Yeah.
The next chapter was King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. And we're begging the teacher, like, can we skip this and get to King Arthur instead, please?
Yeah.
That's the problem. One of the things I've like I said, I've been listening to lectures on Gatsby, reading books on Gatsby.
Oh, no.
One of the things that has come up more than once is it's because it's a big book. Like half of high schools in the U.S. teach The Great Gatsby, and it's like they're teaching The Great Gatsby to kids when they're at an age to not appreciate Great Gatsby that much.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, since people are bringing it up, it's the same way with Great Expectations. I hated it in school, but I went back and I reread it a few years ago, and it's berserk. It's just absolutely berserk. But you can't notice when you're a kid, like all that stuff with Mrs. Havisham and like the melodramatic like guy who kidnaps him and becomes his benefactor through all the years. It's really wild. But
I just remember at the time reading, it was like, this is the most mind-numbing thing I've read next to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know that either. No. Yeah, I don't know why. It didn't land.
I read Great Expectations, the Classics Illustrated version.
Yeah.
And even I thought, man, if somebody would just come in right now and shoot the lady, it will save everyone a ton of aggravation.
That's where you want to have a crossover with War of the Worlds, and to have the Martians show up and blow everything up. Yeah.
But I understand the story for Great Gatsby very well at all. I mean, I know that there's a traffic light, and I know that apparently it's very poorly suited for a first-person shooter, and that's really all I know about it.
It's not a traffic light; it's the light on the end of a dock.
See, there you go. That's why I failed 7th grade, man. That's got to be it.
I'm a big Fitzgerald fan. I've really gotten into Gatsby in the last 5 years or so since I reread it. But it's so 1922.
Yeah, well, you're the world's biggest Whit Stillman fan, so you can really wrap that into the Stillman verse somehow. You should just write that guy and say, like, I will do the storyboards for free. You get out there. I will loan you the jacket. Go make this movie.
We got a Great Expectations fan.
Right? It's when you go back and you read it again, you're like, wow, this is nuts. Like there's boat accidents and like ladies in 100-year-old wedding dresses walking around fully in flame. Like it's dramatic. It's a dramatic book. I didn't really get Charles Dickens when I was a kid at all. I didn't get him until I was older, and I don't know why. Because it's just a kind of trashy that. It's so trashy. It's just so trashy. It's like learning to enjoy romance novels almost. It's just so weird and over the top, and everything's so melodramatic and fruity, and everybody has the most ridiculous names like Pobbleglocks and stuff like that. I don't know. It's a lot of fun.
Is it Dickens? Is Great Expectations Dickens?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I've never read any Dickens.
Dickens was the very first guy to ever get paid by the word. Which explains a lot about, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. You know how that sentence goes on for a full page?
Right.
Yeah, that guy he had a yacht. He wanted to buy a boat.
To Kill a Mockingbird is one of those books that school-age kids love because it's about two school-age kids.
Yeah. And one of them's Truman Capote.
Yeah.
I love Arthur Crane. Is that the guy who decided he wanted to murder the Pope, but he couldn't quite go through with it, so he went home and beat up his dad instead? No, he wanted to beat up the Pope, so he murdered his dad, right?
I don't know.
Concept.
Yeah, he was a really good painter. He did the Fairy Feller's Master Stroke, which ended up as a Queen's as a cover of a Queen album. Yeah. Fahrenheit 451. It turns out that Brave New World was the one that got it all right.
Yeah. It's tough to figure out what to teach kids because you want to give them books that they can aspire to learn something from, but you also have to give them books they can relate to.
Like what Gore said in there, I can't imagine people not liking books.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see why normal people nowadays don't like books. If things move, they pay attention. If they don't, that whole imagining action in your head is beyond the minds of most people now.
I'd be honest, I barely read fiction at this point too, so I can't really talk to other people.
I wonder if we could get kids to read Alexander Dumas, because everybody likes the Three Musketeers when there's a movie out.
Yeah.
And then they snicker about the pronunciation of the word Dumas. They think it's dumbasses.
They're probably going to say
boxing.
Yeah, I have a story about that. So there's Texas just gets their name by pulling names out of the hat, totally random everywhere you go. And the very, very top city in Texas, top of the little handle at the very top is Dumas. And I was riding my bike. It was when I rode my bike from Texas to California in 2004. So I saw this town coming up like weeks in advance. And I knew that no matter where you go in Texas, however you think it's pronounced, you're wrong. And it's something else. Like it's a place where Houston became Houston or Salado, places like that. So all the way up there, I was like, is it going to be Dumas? Is it going to be dumbass? Like, what are they going to do? They got to think of something. And then I finally got up there and it's like, so what's the name of this town? And they said, Dumas.
Pennsylvania has some interesting town names like Climax and Intercourse, which are not too far apart from each other.
Yeah,
and I wonder what the settlers were thinking about when they named these towns.
I love that 84 is a real town and it has a chain named after it. Like, what are the odds?
There's a town named 84?
84 is named after the town of 84, Pennsylvania. That's where they got the name. It was stop number 84 on some train track or another.
Wow.
Yeah, I think it's the coal mining towns that I think about because all those towns have this sort of like turn of the 20th century linguistic flavor.
And the next comic I got this week is Homesick Pilots number 7. The first story arc was sort of a horror story. Now it's turned into this trying to make a ghost-powered Gundam story. So it's got a little science. And this was like a romance issue.
What an odd juxtaposition there.
But is it still about a band?
Yeah, not really. I mean, the initial people were in a band. The bands are mostly dead. In this issue, we get back to because Homesick Pilots is the name of the band, of which only the lead singer I think is still alive. The Gundam is named the Nuclear Bastard, which is the name of the other band, of which I think only 2 people are still alive.
Wow!
But this issue is kind of a romance story about our girl who the ghosts were messing with in the first issue. And I think the guy's from her band, too. I can't remember. Yeah, I think he's from the band. And they've been on the run from the haunted house from the first story arc, who's hiding in the ocean.
It sounds like Jerry Cornelius or something like that. That's all over.
It's very weird.
It sounds like it started out as Love and Rockets, and then it became something to do with supernatural and ghosts, and now it's turned into BattleTech.
Yeah,
it's really strange how it's changed.
We used all the genres.
Yeah, they're mashing up as many genres as they can get in this.
It's very rare that you get like military science fiction with a lot of high grade equipment crossed over with something that had a horror connotation to it.
Yeah, I mean let me try. The haunted house is literally following them in the ocean. They're like, oh no, we have to. There it is.
Baba Yaga's hut.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. It's like, hey, wouldn't you rather be in an issue of Night Force? They're like, no, thank you. We're gonna go fight Godzilla.
Wow.
They try to go inland, but then where's this is what's weird too. Here's a nice. This is they managed to go inland a little bit. And they're broke in going, how much money do we have? Like $1.75. And all of a sudden the kid's like, check it out. Someone dropped a 50. And he's like, don't touch it. And it turns out it's a haunted $50 bill. I don't know exactly how it got haunted but that got the ghost but them touching the $50 bill made the ghost able to talk to them.
Nice.
And start to possess the girl again.
Money talks.
Yeah, literally. Yeah, it's like it has a picture of Samuel P. Chase on it or something. Don't touch with money.
The way
then at the end, I don't know what this. I don't know what this means, but like at the end, we see this Gundam walking out of the ocean. Then it turns out we see it's a little ghost kid with a toy. And some random Nazi picks up the toy. I think he's a Nazi from some other pages. Picks up the toy, and the ghost kid just breaks his arm. It's like, so there's now a haunted action figure with a little kid who can break your arm if you take his ass. It's like, what is going on in this comic?
Well, it was everything.
Everything. We got everything.
What's the comics? Yeah, Jerry Cornelius was dating his sister for a while, but he did a lot. A lot of stuff happens in those books. They move quickly.
The way they're going through genres in that book, I have come up with the best solution for an ending that they should follow. It needs to end with a Great Gazoo lookalike jumping over a shark.
Wally says, get it? Get it?
The Moorcock name drop just reminded me, I put on my pull list, Titan Comics is coming out with they're doing new adaptations of all the Moorcock stuff. I think they've been reprinting the old first comics Moorcock stuff. And now they're doing their own new versions of the Michael Moorcock in chronological in some order. I can't remember if it's the order the books came out in or the order the stories. One or the other. They're doing them. So I was like, I'll put that on my pull list. I managed to find a few pages of the art which looked good.
When Moorcock was actually writing for Tom Strong.
No way.
He grafted himself into that story, and it just didn't seem like it was a good fit.
I don't remember.
One thing about Tom Strong I didn't like is those Moorcock issues just seemed like they kind of stuck out like a sore thumb.
That's interesting.
We were talking about this last night with a friend. Like, he was talking about how he's reading Moorcock right now. And I was like, no, I'm not reading Moorcock right now. I'm reading Philip K. Dick. And I was like, I'm a very adult. How am I supposed to make this work? Like, somebody should have solved this problem a long time ago. I mean, you don't want to make the joke, but at some point you just get overwhelmed.
I mean, name things cocks and dicks.
People are
going to giggle.
I'm slow.
Yeah. Well, I'll try. I'll be better.
I'm looking forward to some new Elric adaptations.
Fuck yeah.
I like the old ones too.
It was a text adaptation, it's illustrated, novel a few years ago. One of them was done by Mike Kaluta, and that one was really good.
Okay.
Have you heard of the Jerry Cornelius movie?
I'm sorry?
Have you ever seen the final program? It came out in the 70s. That, Michael Moorcock actually got to make a Jerry Cornelius movie in the 70s.
No, I haven't seen it.
The dog's being rude. Sorry about that. No, he actually made it. I'm trying to watch it right now. It's like an episode of Star Trek directed by Michael Moorcock, and apparently he was in the studio begging people that it was hilarious, and they were playing it straight. It's no, Jerry Moorcock is supposed to be a pre-Austin Powers type character. He's supposed to be hilarious.
Yeah.
And they didn't get it, and they played the whole thing straight, and apparently it's all like Zardoz or something like that.
Oh, God, Zardoz.
Yeah, I really want to see it, to be honest.
That harness get up that Sean Connery was wearing, man, that's a classic.
And I got this week that actually came out 2 weeks ago, but my shop was shorted on it. Hey kids,
he's really pushing that. Is it good? He's really pushing it over the internet. He's working hard.
It's Howard Chaykin's history, comic history, and Comic Crack was complaining that it's too fictionalized for him.
Right. I think,
and I can understand that.
Yeah.
I would like to see a version with people's actual names and whatnot, but that's not what he's doing.
That's not.
I can't expect this to be that version because it's his own version. It's kind of the spirit of the times rather than the literal facts of the times.
And doing it's also important because to do it this way, because if you try to use the actual history, it's going to get disjointed. You're going to end up picking episodes left and right, but there's no connective narrative between all of them.
If you did the actual history, then the book would be 400 issues long.
It would be a completely different thing.
Yeah, but there would be no narrative binding everything together. Yeah. And this way you can.
Howard Chaykin is one of the most over-the-top characters I've ever met in my life. He's one of those. You'll be talking to him, and he'll start singing an opera. He'd never do something realistic. He's just.
I met him only one time about 3 or 4 years ago, and I got to sit next to him at a con for most of the day. And I had a ball chatting with him.
Yeah, he's like nobody else. He really is, isn't he?
Yeah, I don't know if I've talked about this before or not, but I've noticed I would read print interviews with Howard Chaykin, and he would come across as being very brash. Kind of a prickly figure, but when I saw some video interviews, he didn't come across that way. It was interesting.
No, he comes across much more jovial.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're sitting next to this guy, and you're like, wow, this dude, like Stan Lee literally gave this dude a nickname.
Yeah.
And he earned it. He deserved it. They called him, I don't know, Shanking Howard Chaykin or something. I don't know.
Yeah,
but he's he really comes across as just the sort of ridiculous, over-the-top New York City character you don't meet anymore. So yeah, I would expect something florid and half fake and probably really obsessed with women's feet.
He was happy that I taught him the term prison pretty.
Yeah, he's that kind of guy. Yeah, I don't know if I'm sure he's met a gazillion people over his life, but I really like that dude.
Yeah, but it's funny because I realized before I picked up, I think it was Black Kiss 2, about 10 years ago now. I hadn't read Chaykin's work in maybe 20 years because I'm an indie guy and he was doing mainstream stuff when he was doing comics. So it's I just kind of passed it all over. So when 10 years ago, when he started doing indie work again, I'm I got to pick up some Howard Chaykin. And I've been picking it up ever since. Just I'm thrilled. Him and Walter Simonson both. I'm I'm glad they're doing indie stuff now because that's up my alley.
Yeah, I didn't
rather than Marvel and DC stuff.
Buck Rogers. He did Buck Rogers series a few years ago. I just didn't like it at all.
Who did?
Simonson or Chaykin?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't.
I mean, I've been picking up his Ragnarok.
Yeah. Nothing he's ever done really was that great to me.
The cynical story approach was great for Buck Rogers. It just didn't fit the character.
Did you like American Flag? That was his big thing, right?
No, that's Chaykin, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, you were talking Simon? Simonson did Buck Rogers.
No, I was talking Howard Chaykin did Buck Rogers.
Chaykin did Buck Rogers? Okay.
I feel like if I tried American Flag again, maybe in the sense that I like Charles Dickens, I would get into it. But the thing I really liked about American Flag was the lettering, which is the wrong answer.
Yep.
And he did a story in the Batman Black and White, which was just like noxious. Do you all remember that one?
I don't remember that one in particular, but some of the Batman Black and White series has been really good stuff.
Yeah, really. I mean, they got Mobius in it.
Well, the
Black Kiss
was weird.
Was really good.
Hmm?
Black Kiss 2 was really good by Howard Chaykin. I even liked Satellite Sam that he did with Matt Fraction, but it read like Howard Chaykin.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Yeah, he did something for that that science fiction imprint that DC did forever ago. It was called Helix.
Right. That's all the stuff I passed over because it was DC stuff.
I forgot about that because there was a series they did. It was called Vermilion, I think, which is part of.
Yeah.
I can't remember if that was part of Helix or it was part of Vertigo, or if Helix was an offshoot of Vertigo. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think if you put like all those bizarre '90s offshoot off-prints that DC did, I think those are my favorite comics ever.
Really?
Like, if you count Vertigo, I mean, Vertigo is, I hate to admit it, but Vertigo is about as good as comics ever got.
I was never a Vertigo fan. The number of Vertigo comics that I liked, you can count on one hand.
There was some really good stuff that Vertigo did, and there was some that just kind of fell flat, too.
To me, Vertigo was corporate indie comics. That's all it was to me.
Sort of.
It didn't help that I wasn't a Sandman fan because everything they were trying to duplicate Sandman.
That's
so
how it turned out.
If you're not a Sandman fan,
well, I mean, Bunch worked with Karen Berger for years, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, like it was her baby, so he'd probably be able to tell you for real. But it seems to me that Vertigo was just like, hey, look, we can hire all these English people.
Yeah.
And just look and see what works, and some of it worked. And as it happened, Sandman was the big standout. But I mean, they hired all sorts of, like, if you ever worked on 2000 AD, you probably had a Vertigo book at one point,
right?
John Smith and Kevin O'Neill, you know, Duncan Fagredo, like those people were just like slapping out fill-in issue, basically just wild short story fill-in comics all over the place. And yeah, it was Sandman that lasted for sure. But man, there's a lot of good Vertigo stuff that came out.
Jared,
did anybody else read the Jack King Kirby graphic novel? I remember seeing it, and the artwork, like he said, didn't really interest me.
Was that the one that was done by Tom Scioli?
I don't remember because there's two of them that I mix up. There's like a Stan and Jack comic, and there's like a Jack King Kirby comic.
I got a free comic book day one that was an adaptation, I think, of Tom Scioli's. He's got a very manga style art style.
Yeah.
Tom Scioli's style is really weird.
I think we were talking about him the last time I was here because he did design, right?
He did what?
Grand Design. Isn't he the one that's doing all those Grand Design comics like he did Fantastic
He did one of them. He did one of them.
Fantastic Four one, which is the not good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I tried. Oh, I did find a good comic lately, though. Guess who has returned to actually writing comics?
Who?
Garth Ennis!
Oh, that's right. I saw a new one.
Vertigo people. No, I mean, but like, there's a Garth Ennis comic right now that is not just a collection of the weird shit that he's seen on 4chan lately. Like, there's this comic called A Walk Through Hell. Have you read this?
That one I've read, yes.
It's got characters. It's got dialogue. It doesn't make a damn bit of sense.
That one's a few years old, and I wasn't a big fan of it. Nothing ever happened in it. But he's got another one out that I can't remember the name of, but I just saw the 3rd issue of this week. And I was like, oh, if that's still there next week, maybe I'll pick it up. It was polybagged, too, so probably had some dirty pictures in it, so I don't know.
Yeah, one would assume. I mean, I still haven't read Crossed, but just from...
Oh, I've read all of Crossed. Crossed is the most horrible horror book ever.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why I sort of want to read and sort of don't.
If you're a horror fan, you won't like Crossed because it'll be too violent and gory and sexual for you. Yeah. All the horror fans I know hate Crossed because it's genuinely horrible.
What's it about?
It's not vicarious horror. It makes you upset.
What's it about? What's the subject?
Post-apocalyptic. There's something called the Crossed virus.
Oh, okay.
That
makes you act like a character in an Ennis comic book, basically.
Yes. And all your inhibitions are gone, and you want to rape and kill everyone.
Mm-hmm. And you have an Irish ex-girlfriend, and
and it's the most violent, rapey, killy comic ever. Maybe anything ever.
Okay, it wasn't what I thought it was. Didn't he do a series that was based in the Crusades?
I think that was Ellis.
Small publisher. Okay.
Yeah.
Like Avatar or one of those, small publishers.
Well, I mean, that's it. Okay, so we're actually still naming Vertigo people. Although I guess Ellis technically came from Image because they brought him in with Stormwatch. But Ennis and Morrison are Vertigo people. Yeah, I can't believe they put that stuff on the covers.
Warren Ellis came in through Marvel. I don't know how they got to him, but he started with Excalibur.
Yeah, he was Excalibur, and he did Doom 2099, which was a big deal to me at the time.
And that's when he goes to Image.
But then he went to Image and did that Stormwatch crossover, the Stormwatch Aliens comic, where he just murdered all of the Wildcats. Or was it one or the other? He murdered an entire team. It was fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Tim talked about that one once, didn't he?
He likes doing that, Ellis.
Yeah, well,
the entire team. I'm tired of them.
I know he's out of fashion right now, but Warren Ellis, he's a good writer. If my random rants on the internet were anywhere near as entertaining as Ennis's or Ellis's,
And by the way, Tim describes Crossed as you're so ashamed to have it that you hide it and put your pornography out on the coffee table. That's how ashamed you are of reading Crossed.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, so nice. Do I read it or not? I don't know.
I like it, but it is rough. It's not a feel-good, hopeful comic at all. You want a hopeless comic. Marjorie Finnegan, Temporal Criminal, is a Garth Ennis new. That's the one I saw. 8 issues. I saw issue 3 this week. That was when Cross was being published. I kept expecting it to end up in the local news after a kid picked. Oh, it is.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like Ennis decided he gave all this money to the CBLDF, and he's like, "Well, I better use it." Like,
oh my, yeah, Crossed is definitely. It might be the. I liked Crossed. I read it digitally though. I don't have any physical issues to.
Yeah, you don't want evidence of that.
But it is rough. I mean, it is not. I'm not a horror movie fan, but I know plenty of people who are horror movie fans. And horror movies make them feel good. They kind of live vicariously through whatever is going on. And it gives them the thrill of being alive. Crossed does not do that. Crossed makes you feel hopeless and dirty when you finished reading it.
Yeah,
it puts bad thoughts in your head.
I'm not really a horror fan, but I'm a monster movie fan.
Right,
that's a different thing.
Yeah. It reminds me of Ebert's review of Human Centipede. Did you ever read his review of that? It's like, I give this...
No,
this
but I imagine from what I've heard of Human Centipede, it would.
Oh, he's like, this movie comes from a universe where there are no thumbs. Like, I cannot give this movie a good rating or a bad rating. It is of a world without the night has no stars in it. It was almost poetic.
Wow.
And very little of Crossed is written by Garth Ennis. They had a rotating series of Garth Ennis said that they hired him to set it all up, kind of.
Yeah.
Then they had a rotating series of writers and artists doing the stories.
My favorite shock casting of Garth Ennis ever. Because, it's always, there was a while there where they tried to just, use him, they tried to use Tarantino as a script doctor. They just hired Ennis to come in and, oh, God. Remain where you are. The FBI is on its way. Sorry, you can't see what King's Point just said, but he scared me.
Yeah, I did.
Well, the thing that scares me is that no matter how bizarre, whatever terminology you want to use for human centipede, somewhere out there the Japanese have something that make it look tame in comparison.
Yeah.
Frost is the Siberian film meets 28 Days Later. I don't know the Siberian film, so. But
it's like Hostel, except even more depressing.
King's Poet is working on a G.G. Allen comic, so there's his aesthetic for you.
I guess so, yeah, right? I mean, if you're looking at things through the eyes of G.G. Allen, like, yeah.
Human Centipede's a comedy.
Pretty funny. I'll tell you, that Human Centipede is learned that sometimes you just want to read the Wikipedia page and move on.
Yep. Here is the other comic I bought this week with some terrific Tim Bradshaw art, who is obviously influenced by Arthur Adams and maybe Joe Madureira.
Yeah,
because it's got this really detailed little scales on the dragon's artwork.
I think that's the series that has like some alternate covers done by some pretty high name artists.
Isn't that every series?
Yeah, there's definitely Arthur Adams influence there, absolutely.
Oh, definitely. And in the back, it's kind of cool. They have the inks and the colors on some of the covers.
That's lovely work.
The only problem I have with it was I don't think it was worth $5.
Well, what can you do?
20 pages of comic plus that's the only thing. If it was a $4 comic, it would be on my pull list. It's a $5 comic, so I'm iffy about it because the story is just rich kid lost in the Bermuda Triangle, lands on this island where there are giant lizards and a jungle girl.
Sounds pretty good.
Her grandfather or something.
I'd assume that's much better than the last Jungle Girl book that you talked about.
There you go.
Yeah. So you got to uncouple monetary value from comic books. That's 20th century.
Something like this what it does is immediately makes me say maybe I should pick up the trade paperback of it.
Yeah.
Because if it's $5 an issue, that means it's for 5 or 6 issues, it's going to be $25 to $30.
Right.
What's the trade paperback going to be?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
20. Probably.
$20.
Gigi
was a friend of his.
Like literally in real life? Because if that's true, I know some people that are going to buy your comic.
I think he runs a music venue of some sort. He's somehow associated with a music venue down south.
I know why he ran a music venue with G.G. Allen, where that G.G. Allen played, and he was not G.G. Allen's friend. There's the farthest thing from a friend G.G. ever had. So maybe.
If there's a G.G. Allen comic book, there should also be a Mojo Nixon comic book.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
An excellent story.
Read a comic about them, then listen to their albums.
An excellent story along with excellent art for $5 would be much better. An okay story with excellent art makes me go.
The comic
what I would like to see?
The Conku book I got from France, I think it's $5 US, and it's some of the best value I've ever spent money on.
Yeah. I was in a band called Spoets, and we toured with the post-GG Murder Junkies. Oh,
wow.
Well, I bet you've seen some really gross dressing rooms.
No doubt.
Well, that is
but it's funny, the two wall books I pulled off the shelf this week was a $6 first issue and a $5 first issue. Kind of like,
Put them together and they get 11.
I need some $4 first issue.
Yeah, I think the right price point for comics is honestly $1. I think if you really want to move comic books, they've got to cost exactly $1. And I don't know how you can print and distribute them for that, but that's what people want to pay.
Yeah.
Because I do all these shows, not as many as I used to, but
It's
like things have natural price points.
Well, it's a catch-22 because to publish something at that price point, you'd have to move, an economy of scale that's just you can't do in the modern comic.
It's simply impossible. Yeah, absolutely.
And you can sell newspapers at $1 nowadays.
Yeah, and they have to. Yeah, and they've got a lot more.
Newspapers are more than $1 these days. I think the New York City newspapers are $1.50 or $2.
Well, I will say I had nobody that even seemed slightly worried about me selling a 24-page comic for $5. Like that was perfectly natural. Nobody thought anything about it. But we were the only people selling comics, so I guess whatever we said goes.
Yeah. It'll all be in the comic. The only thing I really have over other people is my lived experience. I'm all in autobiography.
Yeah. Oh. So you're like going to be the Durf of G.G. Allen. Well, cool. I'll read the shit out of that.
Or just do trades at $10 or do one of the black and white ones. Yeah. Well, the problem is it's like the natural price for trades is like $5.
Yeah.
If you're selling used trades or whatever, you can't sell them for more than $5.
Yeah. Trades at cons, especially, you go through boxes and boxes of them. Be marked $5 each. Yeah.
That's true. I think you're all right. It seems like just the natural price point for like a printed article that I intend to read and probably won't get around to is $5.
Yeah. Ooh, that looks cool. I don't really like it, but I'll give you $5 for it.
Yeah. It used to be I will give you $1 to stop talking to me. Now it's I will give you $5. Inflation, I guess, but
and it's bigger. It seems like trade's got value.
Wow, that's an interesting. I mean, you deal with this stuff when you're at a convention. You deal with this sort of like instinctual awareness of. Yeah, sure will. Hold on, let me write that down. So you sort of really what people.
You can find them on my friend list.
I'm not sure I can trust anybody whose first name is Scott and their last name begins with a C.
Too close, man. Too real.
Yeah.
And the last book I got this week is the latest Usagi Yojimbo, where we find out the new character that was introduced. This kid over here is Usagi's cousin.
Haven't even taken it out of the bag yet.
And it's as good as every other issue. It is. I've been reading Usagi Yojimbo for 35 years now. So it's tough to find anything new to say about it, except it's a really good comic. It was a really good comic 35 years ago. It's even a better comic now. Yeah. I don't know why people would not buy Usagi Yojimbo.
Because you have to read 35 years of backstory. I'll get there.
No, you don't.
Because it's not a superhero book from either Marvel.
It's not a superhero book. You can pick up any issue and read it.
If
there's no long-running story. What was that, Paolo?
If this was humor story, Stan Sakai just lost an opportunity to do a good Italian pun.
What?
Because it should have named Usagi's cousin Cugino Coniglio, which means cousin rabbit in Italian.
Cousin.
Look at you, trilingual jokes.
What size are they printing those Usagi hardcovers? Are they the 6x9 size or the comic
It depends on which ones you're talking about.
Because I know they printed some at 6x9. Dark Horse did.
The Dark Horse ones are the same size as. I'm trying to think what compared to. I've got a couple of them.
Manga size.
Well, the regular hardcovers, which are just like you print one story arc.
Okay.
Are not much bigger, about the same size as a typical comic, maybe slightly smaller than that. Now, the Usagi Saga stuff they have is more like an absolute format.
Okay,
it's oversized. It's not huge.
Because I've seen the small. I've seen a lot of the smaller ones over the years.
Yeah, the smaller ones are usually where they just reprint one story arc.
Okay, those I've stayed away because I've always kind of gone, I should get some Usagi hardcovers one day.
The ones that Fantagraphics and IDW have done are just normal sized, trades.
That'd be fun. I don't know. It's just he puts a lot of stuff into every page. It's fun to look through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I have to say, I'm really enjoying the color on the new Usagi ones. I never thought it needed to be in color. I always enjoyed it in black and white over the years, but I'm really enjoying the color.
I've always thought it works great both ways.
Yeah. I'm really,
kind of like Hellboy. You can read it either way, and it works.
Yeah, and it's fun even reading the reprints, reading them all new again in color. I'm glad I'm picking those up.
Helen was the same way. It works both ways.
Is he coloring it himself, or is he getting somebody else to do it?
Somebody else is doing it.
I don't know if they have an ongoing, like a Tom Luth colored.
I think they do.
What I'm getting at, I don't know if they have an ongoing colorist that's going to be ongoing past.
Hi-Fi Design is listed as the color.
Whatever 6-issue series is.
I mean, Usagi's been going forever. He's got to be like a decent client for him. Whoever they are.
Hi-Fi Design is listed as the colorist. I forget who that is, what the person's name is, but most of the colorists used flatters and stuff like that to color their stuff to make more money. Coloring their stuff.
Yeah, well, it's an economic form. You want to do this stuff, you got to make money at it, or win a lottery. Money.
I'm not really sure what to think about the news I'm hearing about the Usagi animated series.
Yeah,
because it's not actually Usagi; it's his.
I'm happy if Stan Sakai's getting some money, but I don't really care.
It seems like it's the Usagi equivalent of Batman Beyond.
Yeah.
Why not? Whatever.
Yeah. Why not?
Yeah.
I mean, I watched 10 minutes of the Invincible series.
I'm curious.
But hey, it got other people to read Invincible, so what the heck?
People say that's a notably bloody film, or that's a really bloody series too, right?
Yeah.
The last violence comic adaptation I tried to watch was Resident Alien. And that thing is offensive to human intelligence. But for some strange reason, when normies watched it, they thought it was funny. It's not supposed to be funny. That's the whole. The comic is an interesting take on the police procedural because it stars an alien.
Yeah. They turned it into a comedy.
Yeah, and it's Marvin the Martian now in human form.
I watched the TV show, but I much prefer the comic. TV show is just okay. Just okay. Let's see what else I got from the library. What did I get? I got more Alan Moore. I got the Bo Jeffries saga. I have never read the Bo Jeffries saga.
I've read articles about it, but I don't remember what the hell it's supposed to be about.
I don't either. Let's see.
Yeah, what's the
Bo Jeffries is like any other father, trying to keep the peace in a house stuffed with 2 kids, uncles, a baby, old grandpa. Never mind that one's a werewolf, one's a vampire. Grandpa's in the last stages of organic matter, and the baby puts off enough thermonuclear energy to power England and Wales. I still don't know what it's about.
It sounds promising. It sounds sort of like a modern Addams Family, right?
I was going to say, it does sound like a wacky Addams Family kind of.
I think this was this 2000 AD stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, then it's going to be pretty good, right?
Yeah. This came out the book was out. It's from 2014. It doesn't say when the original comics were, but I think the 90s.
80s.
80s even?
I was thinking 80s.
Oh yeah. Wow.
Oh yeah. Now that you mention it, I do remember it that long ago.
It sounds like it has some harsh criticisms of America in it.
Oh, Steve Parkhouse draws this. Isn't he the one who draws Resident Alien?
Yeah.
Wow. How's that for a tie-in? We were just talking Resident Alien.
Yeah.
Steve
Same
Porthouse
artist.
has been working in comics since the 70s.
Wow. He's good, too.
It's starting to sound pretty good, honestly.
Yeah, I've always heard good things about it.
I'd always heard
So-
good things about DR and Quinch too, but I never got around to reading it.
Yeah, that was an early Alan Moore thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is that?
DR and Quinch.
DR and Quinch.
No, I've never read that one either. But I will also be able to read.
It's one of the first
Halo
collaborations
Jones.
between Moore and Alan Davis, the Iron Queen.
Oh wow, yeah, that's a classic right there too.
This is another Alan Moore one. Alan Moore and Ian Gibson, I think, also from 2000 AD.
Yeah, but
Ian
I
would
think,
be good.
I think Halo Jones wasn't finished.
Ah, not
I think-
finished.
This was one of his projects where he wrote a lot of poems, if I recall correctly.
But one thing I put after finding The Great Gatsby and To Kill a Mockingbird on the library website, I said to myself, let's see what Alan Moore stuff there is that I haven't read.
Yeah.
So I found some books. I was like, cool. They send them right to, like, this one came from the New City Library. A couple towns over, they sent it to my library.
Yeah, they said they do the interlibrary. Now, does your library charge for interlibrary loan?
No. No.
Okay, because some do and some don't. I'm just curious.
Yeah. Mine used
Then
to,
the
but
last Alan Moore I got is DC Universe, the stories of Alan Moore.
Yeah,
there's some good stuff in there.
Yeah.
That's the one where you get, like, Superman gets the plant that makes him feel bad or something like that.
That's one of my favorites. That's the Superman annual.
Yeah.
It makes him feel good.
It's got.
See, there's the problem.
Yeah, you can get the Killing Joke for an affordable price, and it has all of Alan Moore's other superhero stories in there.
And it's got I've read that Superman annual, but I've never read this Vigilante issue.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he did some villains. It was a good one.
And what else?
And there's the Silent Green Arrow story, which was a backup in Detective. And all the,
he did
all the good stuff that
2 issues.
Mm-hmm.
that they did in Green Lantern in the last 10 years. It was stolen from Alan Moore stories, which were also backups, which appeared there.
Yeah, he was all about Abin Sur, right? He was like the only writer who ever thought Abin Sur was important.
Yeah.
DC Comics presents.
Everybody loves Mogo. He created Mogo.
Yeah, Mo, that was great. I remember that. That was very much in the style of old EC, just wacky twist comics.
Mm-hmm.
But the planet was a Green Lantern. It's so ridiculous. I love it.
Oh, there's the Tales of the Green Lantern backup.
Yeah.
That's the one
Is
you're
that the Ed
talking
Sharp
about.
Bell story?
I wish DC would do more books focused on an individual creator like that.
Well, they don't have the sort of, they just don't have the sort of continuity that's, maybe they do and nobody reads it, but it doesn't seem like DC books interact like that anymore.
Classic last issue. That's because everybody's got their own family.
Yeah.
There's not just one Superman book. There's 3. There's not just one Batman book. There's 6. So when they used to interact, they now interact with their own families, so that there's really not. I don't think there's as many crossovers. Well, Batman annual. I didn't know he did a Batman annual. Alan Moore and George Freeman.
Wait, George
There's a
Freeman.
name I haven't heard in a while.
Wasn't he?
Yeah, isn't he the
Age
Captain
guy?
Canuck guy?
Wasn't he like forever ago? Put up now. I'm curious.
He was.
I think he drew Captain Canuck, right?
I think so.
He was
Killing Joke.
Wasn't his wife a colorist?
Whose wife? George Freeman?
Yeah.
I don't remember.
For some odd reason, I've got that stuck in the back of my brain, and I don't know why. Could be wrong.
He showed up a lot of George Freeman. Oh no, he's the same age as my parents, so not that old. But
For a lot of years, colorists were all wives and girlfriends.
mm-hmm. Yeah, or the
started an
mystical
episode of
ladies of Dover.
Yeah, the Resident Alien I didn't think was great.
Yeah.
DC Universe Alan Moore has the Green Lantern story. Yeah. That John's based his Blackest Night on. Okay. Yeah, I only read a tiny bit of Blackest Night. That, you know.
Yeah.
Even the bounty hunter that goes after Mogo, not knowing it's the planet. Bolfunga the Unrelenting. He has a cameo in one of Geoff Johns' story. He gets beat up by Guy Gardner.
Yeah,
I like the name. Bolfunga the Unrelenting.
Yeah.
When you can get the unrelenting in your name, that's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you got to earn it.
How much profession is.
So, was there anyone we would know at the Comic-Con, Geoff?
Nobody.
Nobody?
Nobody. Like the biggest celebrities there were Danny Trejo and Giancarlo Esposito. And comics wise, like there was a guy who's a hot writer right now, like Steve Carney or Scott Carney or something. I don't even know his name, but that was it. Like absolutely nobody. The guy that wrote the James Bond encyclopedia was there.
Okay,
cool.
Yeah, we were always talking about how the comics book industry was going to change and going to change. It's changed. It's over. I mean, I might keep doing it because they keep putting comic in the title. So somebody should be selling comics and nobody else seems to be doing it. But it's really weird.
Yeah.
Everything's buttons and vinyl now.
Got to get some buttons and vinyl. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I don't know what people want. I guess they want to meet, like there were voice actors. Mark Gosselaar, I think, was the person who was there.
Just that name.
Yeah, I'm not real good on that, but on the voice actors. But like, you know, like a minor character on SpongeBob, nobody showed up. It was just strange.
Huh.
I guess. I mean, I would say that I think people are afraid of COVID, but I'm positive they're not. Like, especially after having just been there. But
not in Texas.
Well, yeah, no, people are not worried, and nobody's coughing. Like I said, nobody was coughing, so I'm gonna find out for sure. Because I spoke to I met like 10,000 people. There,
wow.
it was a comic book convention. Met and shook hands with thousands and thousands and thousands of people. But pros go where the money is, and there hasn't been much money in comics for a long time. To the point where it's I went down there expecting to take a loss, which I did.
You did?
Yeah, I didn't come close to paying what a hotel costs these days.
Wow.
I mean, a hotel, you got to do extremely well at a show to pay for a hotel, especially all the way there and back. No, it wasn't close. So, I mean, if it's a business decision, if you're a working artist, comic book shows don't really have a lot to offer you right now.
Yeah, maybe if you were doing commissions and stuff, they would pay for
a little bit just because you're overhead's less. But no, I mean, I think at this point, comic book conventions are sort of like adventure vacations for the artists. Is really what it's about. Yeah, everything's crazy right now. Oh my God! And don't even get me started on Louisiana. Like we are in the Blade Runner future. It's already happened.
Yeah.
In what regard?
When we were driving down there, we went through this torrential rainstorm that was like being underwater on I-10, where I-10 goes to Louisiana. And then on the way back, the rainstorm was still there. And but this time it was day. And I mean, it was like one of the most horrible rainstorms you've ever seen. And it wasn't stopping. And we drove through Lake Charles, which is True Detective territory in Louisiana. And you're up on this giant concrete bridge and you can see the whole town. And nature is taking that town back like really quickly. It's quite a spectacle. Things are going real bad in parts of Louisiana. Like I've honestly never seen in America before. Like skyscrapers with plywood on their windows. Like more destroyed houses than regular houses. And the houses that they were trying to fix, they're putting plastic roofs on instead of shingles. They've got these blue plastic roofs where they've just like given up on doing anything else. And I mean, like, it was raining and raining and raining and raining, and the road was filled with accident, filled with debris. I saw jackknife trailers. I mean, a substantial portion of America's carrying power went down just while we were driving by it. Like a lot of semi accidents and a lot of debris in the road, like pieces of tire and plywood and dressers. Just it was really, it was a little bit too future for me, to be honest. The permanent rainstorm was a nice touch, though.
It was like Blade Runner.
It was like Blade Runner. It was not raining this hard in Blade Runner. It was the sort of rain that, like, back in the old days, you would have pulled off the side of the road for, but now you've just got no choice, so you just keep going. It was pretty wild. The South is having a hard time. Large parts of it are having a really hard time.
Lots of places are having a hard time right now.
Yeah. Yeah, anyway, cars are astronomical, hotels are astronomical, and they're falling apart. Like they're all full.
Imagine for a smaller comics creator, the only economically feasible show would be a local show to you.
At this point, I consider what I'm doing really complicated folk art. What I'm doing is basically folk art editions for Netflix series. That's really what it comes. That's my long-term plan. Is I'm buying these like really complicated lottery tickets. That's it.
Because I've been thinking about doing what is it, Patreon lately.
Yeah.
The one flaw being I have no fans, but I'm starting to put together. I finally did, and what do I give patrons?
Art.
Exactly. How?
Jared, you make stuff all the time.
I know, but what I finally decided to do was make a digital art magazine.
Yeah.
And that's one way I can deliver it, because I can't just say watch me make art here. I can't just give them I have to package it in some way that's attractive.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what I've been figuring out. Which led me today to making about 400 scans of tiny little drawings. I usually scan in all my stuff as I go along. But I was like, you know what? But for some here, I was actually making, where is it? I was actually making a book map of what I wanted the digital magazine to be, writing down what the different... And on the first page, I put pencil drawings, a lot of little ones. And then I realized the one thing I don't scan in is my tiny little pencil thumbnails. So I had to dig through a whole bunch of stuff and find them. So it's like my first day trying to actually put this together was spent scanning.
Well, that's
good. Like, that was unexpected.
You've got to have like thousands of drawings to scan.
I can fill up magazine after magazine, but just making it presentable is a challenge.
Yeah. But still, you can front load stuff and just put in like 6 months into getting yourself like 3 years in the future or something like that.
Time, and then and I can do, and then I can put a few pages of my latest stuff in. That's all the stuff I have to figure out what I'm doing. But the work I have.
Yeah.
What was that?
You're talking about Patrons. Like a lot of people that do Twitch streams now, a lot of people do YouTube videos. Just 99% of them have Patreon links or some sort of a link like that.
Yeah, I have a Patreon. It's not that big of a deal, but I mean, like the average Patreon makes $150 a month, which is, nice. It's the kind of money that Joe Biden offers people. It's not a lot.
Like you can pay the record deal with it, maybe.
Jared, you could theoretically beat that because you've just got so much content.
Right. That's why I said, why don't I? I actually set one up like 5 years ago, but never figured out what I wanted to do with it. I'm like, what? I see there are people who make YouTube videos about nothing that have Patreons. I'm like, why don't I have one?
Yeah.
I have a Patreon.
I thought it was kind of sad, but neat at the same time. There's a band called Trivium, and their guitar player, his name's Matt Heafy, does Twitch streams a lot. I mean, he does it all the time. He makes more money now doing that per month than they did touring.
Yeah,
I can agree. Yeah.
The success stories are very nice. It's just,
Right.
most of them are us who just make YouTube videos for very few people.
Yeah.
That's 99% of YouTube.
What's the threshold now for YouTube where you get monetized? Is it 10,000 subscribers?
I've never been anywhere near it, so I don't know.
Yeah,
I know that they raised it at one time and people did not like that at all.
Yeah, there's a minimum number of subscribers and a minimum number of hours per month that you gotta do. But but I'm not sure that they care about that anymore because I'm pretty sure they want to ditch the partner program because they started putting ads
they sure do.
in videos that aren't monetized.
Oh, that sounds fun. Well, that too, Paulo. Sorry, both of you.
Oh yeah,
I got it.
Yeah, I love Heroes Con. It's fantastic.
Yeah,
I've always wanted to go to that one. I hear good things.
Yeah. Next summer, huh?
Yeah, they canceled it because of COVID the last 2 years in a row. It's felt really weird not going.
Well, if I become a millionaire, I think I'll go.
Well, that's the thing. You never would say, "Oh, I will go to a comic book con because I will make so much money." You're like, "Oh, I can probably afford it." If I sit behind a table for the whole weekend, that'll take the edge off of the gas. It's not good. So yeah, but shit, why not? I'll go. I can afford it.
Well, the nice thing about Heroes Con too is it's all comics oriented. It's not a pop culture con.
Yeah,
right.
There's a really good show coming up in Minneapolis in September. But if anybody reading that or watching this is from Minneapolis, they got Falcon back on. That's a great show.
I wonder if Xander Cannon would be there because that's where he's from.
No, usually, Xander's there. Yeah, Xander's always there. It's his brother, Kevin. I've never met his brother, but yeah, Xander. I was that. It was crazy. It was the year that it was 2012 because it was the year that the wrestler died, Macho Man Randy Savage. Remember how it was supposed to be the Mayan apocalypse, but the only person who died was Macho Man Randy Savage, and there was a tornado that hit Minneapolis. We were in SpringCon. And Xander had to go home because the tornado hit his house. And I made one of the worst decisions of my life because I was like, should I stay behind my desk and try to make tornado sales, or should I go outside and see a tornado?
No.
And that's how I found out that when there's a tornado outside, people are in no mood to buy comics.
No.
I missed a fantastic chance to see a tornado hit an urban area for money. I'm so disappointed in myself. But yes, got screwed up.
But there's one dealer there that brought like a whole box of old issues of Red Tornado comics. And he's like, "Oh, crap."
Yeah.
Dan Jurgens is always there. I think he wrote Red Tornado. Oh wow, yeah. Emerald City, that's a good show. Didn't we know somebody? What's that guy? Matt's name from your drawing group. The cool dude.
Matt Maley?
Yeah, isn't he on the board for Emerald City? No, they asked him to do what for Emerald City. He's their graphic designer.
No, I think that's Chris Russo might be.
Yeah, I'm probably mixing
stuff. He's done some comics for Emerald City before, I remember.
Yeah,
I don't think Matt has.
Yeah, it was Chris. Anyway, I'd love to see it. Emerald City sounds great. I did Stumptown once, and that was an amazing show. I'd like to see the new warm, dry Seattle, too.
Might be a little too hot. Sleepy Reader did a video when it was 108 degrees out.
Yeah.
He's from up here in Portland, right?
Weeks ago, I mean, it wasn't just Portland, too. It was British Columbia as well. They got
the whole Pacific Northwest.
You're talking like whatever the conversion is from Celsius. You're talking like temperatures like 114, 115.
Yeah, because the Pacific Northwest is real mild.
Yeah.
They don't even have cold winters.
They don't even have air conditioners.
No.
That was one of the weirdest, craziest things that ever happened.
But Republicans tell us that climate change isn't real.
We were 115. Wow.
That's
crazy.
I'd be happy if it got above 75. Yeah.
West Coast is on fire. East of us is on fire. The smoke that we're all getting here, man, is insane. Yeah, it's supposed to be here in New York too, but I haven't noticed.
Here on the East Coast too.
Yep. Yeah. Here in Kentucky, it's oddly smoky.
I saw the satellite image of it up in the air, and it was covering up half of the United States. Crazy.
Yeah. I mean, I always liked cyberpunk.
Didn't want to live it.
Do you remember the cyberpunk role-playing game when it first came out?
Oh, yeah, I do. Yeah. I mean, it was Cyberpunk 2013. Yeah. Yeah, I remember.
That was one of the places that really, the RPG industry was one of the first places that you heard a lot, other than hardcore science fiction fans, about cyberpunk.
Yeah.
What was that William Gibson novel that started cyberpunk, they say? I tried to read it and made it. Neuromancer. I made it half a chapter and went, oh my goodness. I don't want to read this.
I adored that book, but I was a kid. You know, it's still one of my favorite books of all time. But
that was right about the time of my transition from fiction to nonfiction, too. So,
well, his predictions of the future were pretty good as it goes. You know, he was wrong about us like getting computers actually plugged into our brain, but the rest of it's going pretty well so far.
Turns out we didn't need that. We can just look at
computers being plugged directly in. They're coming.
Yeah, I guess so.
I just saw, God, what was it, 3 or 4 days ago? It was some kind of an implant, a neural brain implant that allowed a guy to use artificial hands to give him tactile feedback.
Yeah, I saw that.
I don't know if that's going to be if like regular people will care about it, because our eyes and our fingers work so well.
Right.
Yeah.
And get us so absorbed that I don't know.
It's interesting to see what the technology can do for people that have medical conditions.
Right, right. Those people.
The thing about you chopping off your arm to get a cyber arm, that's not happening.
No. But if you happen to be in the future and have to come back and fight the X-Men and lose an arm, you're going to get a cyber arm to go back and fight the X-Men.
I'm pretty sure I'm going to end up with cyber eyes before it's all said and done.
Cyber eyes. I don't know. I think they can fix our eyes easier than they can give us cyber eyes.
I could use cyber
In
teeth.
some cases, it's kind of a crossover there.
Yeah. What did Paolo say?
I could use cyber teeth. Then I wouldn't.
Cyber teeth.
Cyber teeth. Well, they have them and they suck.
Yeah,
you can get implants. Yeah, absolutely.
Are you going up like Jaws from the Bond movies?
That reminds me, speaking of time travel, I actually watched a time loop movie. I have a soft spot for time loop movies. They might be my favorite type of time travel movies, is time loop movies.
Oh, yeah, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Groundhog Day is, of course, the classic.
And the one that what's his name is in, I can never remember the name.
Edge of Tomorrow.
Thank you.
Edge of Tomorrow. This one is one that just came out this year on Hulu, I think it was, called The Boss Level. And I really enjoyed it, I have to say. It's about a guy who's being attacked by assassins as soon as he wakes up in the morning, and he figures out he's caught in this time loop. And he figured out quickly too. And it really was kind of interesting. I enjoyed it. It was sort of an action movie time loop one, with some poignant moments in it. It kind of near the end stopped being so much of an action movie, and it became more of a love story. But it was good. I liked it.
Well, after that,
Groundhog Day is amazing.
Yeah.
What was that?
I said after all that happened, it was transformed a love story. It was the Rebecca that showed up at the end.
No.
Like in Two Pilots.
Nope.
Yeah,
no Ghost Gundams.
Okay.
There aren't many movies that you can honestly say started a genre, but Groundhog Day sort of started a type of story. I don't remember anything before Groundhog Day that really...
I have still just Groundhog Day.
Oh, Groundhog Day. I just saw the movie it's a short, that Groundhog Day, they say, influenced Groundhog Day.
Yeah, it's got the guy from...
Right. It's called 12:01 p.m.
There we go. That's what it's called.
Or...
I tried to watch it. I couldn't really watch it. I tried though.
I liked it. I enjoyed it.
Have you seen the French movie that's called La Jetée, which is the basis for 12 Monkeys?
Is it really? It's good though. It's such a good way to make a movie.
I thought it was pretty decent.
I always thought that would be a fun way to make a movie because it's so simple and it worked. I mean, people are still talking about La Jetée like 50 years. What's a good time loop? I know good time travel short stories, but I don't know any good time loop comics.
Yeah, I don't know if there's ever been a time loop comic.
Oh, I'm sure there have been, but
yeah,
I can't think of anything off the top of my head.
Yeah.
It's an idea I've played with. I thought it.
House of X, Powers of X.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Technically, yeah. I mean, you could say It's a Wonderful Life and Donnie Darko are time loop, are time travel comics, or
specifically time loop.
Yeah.
You've got to be living the same day or whatever, or hour over and over again. House of X, Powers of X actually was because Moira, at least in the beginning, Moira McTaggart would reset the timeline every time she died or something.
Yeah. She had
so I guess that was a time loop comic.
I guess your past would be a time. No, it's an alternate universe. That's the thing is they diverged into alternate universes a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, time loop story is very specific.
Yeah.
There was another good time loop story in what was it? A map of Pretty Little Things. It was Prime, I think. It came out last year, and it's about this high school kid. These two high school kids, a guy and a girl, stuck on a time loop in their town. That one was pretty good. I enjoyed that one too. I think that's in the map of Pretty Little Things, something like that.
I have no idea why, but it just popped into my head that if somebody was to do a time loop story, I could see Will Eisner doing one.
Yeah.
I don't know why I had that thought. It just popped in there. That's like visually, you could do that.
Yeah, that would be like Matt Feasel. Like you talked about it. Cynical Man technically has like time loop, but it's in the cartoon sense. Where like the guy reaches down to the third panel and steals something from the sixth panel.
Right.
Not what you're talking about at all.
Yeah,
right?
No, but it's funny how you can play with metal like that.
I can't remember the name of the movies now, but it was last year. I was looking up time loop movies to see if there was any I missed. Right. And there was one. There actually turned out there was two. I started watching the second one, but I turned it off because it was so dreadfully dull. And it turned out that Scott Lobdell wrote them. I was like, oh, no wonder I thought it was dull. I've never been a fan of his writing, but I was happy to see him. He got two time loop that are fairly popular movies. So I was like, oh, look at that. I forget the name of them now, but there's two of them. And, he got them made, and they're pretty well regarded, even though I didn't like them.
So way back in the day, back in 96, Jared here actually scared me into learning to draw by threatening me with Scott Lobdell. He's like, do you want to be Scott Lobdell? And I was like, no! I'll do what it takes. Which I guess I did. But you're not a Scott Lobdell.
That kind of rep.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't him personally. It was the story of how he got to be a writer, kind of thing.
Gotcha.
It was he was one of these guys who, because I told him, in order, especially at that time, now I don't know how, you had to be friends with the editors. That's how you got a writing career.
Right.
So Scott Lobdell would hang out at Marvel, hanging out with the editors, making friends with the editors, hanging out, picking up a fill-in issue here or there, doing what, kissing butt, whatever he had to do to get a fill-in issue here. I mean, most people give up at, but he got lucky that the Image guys quit. And all of a sudden, Bob Harris was in a jam because he had to get these X-Men books out. So he was like, Scott, you're writing X-Men books. Scott was like, whatever you want. Whatever you want, you. So he did whatever Bob Harris wanted him to do.
Okay.
And that's how he became a big X-Men, right? I mean, it paid off for him.
Yeah.
But I was explaining to him, that's what you have to do, and that's what circumstance has to give you in order to be a comic book writer. This is in 1992 or something like that.
He was kind of like that.
You were correct. You were completely correct. I mean,
if you're not willing to do that, you're never going to be a comic book writer.
So he was kind of like the kid in A Christmas Story that was a toady of the main bully.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, and
I don't want to associate Bob Harris with a bully. I'm not saying he was a bully, but yeah,
I'm saying it was that dynamic.
You have to be a toady, and it has to pay off. You could be plenty of guys were toadies, and it didn't pay off.
Yeah.
He just
that's a good point.
What was that?
I still had this fantasy that somehow we were in the era of Grant Morrison and Hunter S. Thompson, and you could just make it by being an interesting writer. It's completely wrong on that. Completely wrong. Couldn't have been more wrong. But at least it wasn't Scott Lobdell.
The Jake Gyllenhaal movie Source Code. I don't think I've seen that.
Yeah, that was a good one. I enjoyed that.
I've heard of it.
He was in a time loop, but more tapped into a program. Okay, I'm going to have to write down Source Code.
It was one of those movies that was better than it was supposed to be. It was by David Bowie's son.
I don't think isn't Looper a time loop movie too, or is that a time travel one?
It's time travel. Yeah, it's time travel, and I think technically it started as a comic, if I recall correctly.
I always get Looper and Jumper mixed up with each other.
No, slightly different.
Yeah, they are. Granted.
Jumper's about a teleporting little boy, if I recall correctly. Yeah. No, Looper's about this guy who's fated to turn into Bruce Willis, so Bruce Willis has to travel back in time to stop him. It's by Ryan Johnson, who honestly is one of my favorite directors. I mean, the guy makes good movies. So
he's the guy that a lot of Star Wars fans think ruined Star Wars. Is that the same?
Well, he
guy?
did. They're right. That's why I love him.
Oh, okay.
I love movies that attack the previous film. I'm still the world's biggest fan of Alien 3. Yeah.
I've never seen it, but nobody is.
I don't know you anymore. Yeah.
Alien 3 broke a lot of new ground in a lot of ways, but it murdered the entire cast of aliens in the first, during the opening credits.
I have a rather unpopular outlook on Alien. I think they should have left it alone after the first one. The first one is Aliens was okay. I liked it. Okay. But Alien is a perfect movie. And not perfect, but it's close to being a perfect movie.
Geoff, you must be a big fan of Aliens Wildcat then.
Yeah.
Remember that one?
I am. I like that aliens are incredibly lethal. They're a terrifying form of life.
Warren Ellis killed off half of the Stormwatch team in a random book between the two Stormwatch series. Those of us who didn't get Wildcat's Aliens picked up Stormwatch Volume 2, Issue 1, and went, what the hell?
What just happened?
Half the team is dead.
Yeah. And then to make it worse, it seems like we spent the first 4 years of the 2000s waiting for Travis Charest to finish drawing things.
Yeah.
The Dark Horse mixed it, but that continuity's been thrown away.
Yeah.
But to answer his question, it first mixed in comics way before there was a movie that was done.
Yeah.
You brought up Travis Charest. Have you ever seen a little series he did? It was just a one-book thing that was called Space Girl.
Yeah, that was excellent.
That is great.
Yeah.
I wish he would continue that.
Yeah,
I guess whatever he's doing is paying better than that. So that's what he's doing. But
it's probably not something in comics either.
Yeah, but I mean, wow. That makes me sad about comics is we've never been able to keep our best talent. They've always been. Maybe best is the wrong word, but there's always been people that sort of.
That's a good word. Some of the great. Neil Adams is to me the example of that.
Yeah.
Neil Adams comes back and does comics,
but
semi-frequently.
Since the 70s, comics have been a hobby for Neil Adams.
Right.
So what does he do? Does he work on movies or what?
He's continuity advertising.
Oh.
In the 70s, Continuity Studios, his studio, started being one of the biggest advertising studios out there. And he just that's where all his money was made.
Right. I had no idea.
That's why he was able to do Continuity Comics as a hobby.
Yeah.
And, he employed his whole family at Continuity Studios. That's
cool. Well, maybe I guess I've seen a lot of his ads and stuff over the years, and I just didn't notice.
I think,
but he was one of those guys who in 1972 he was probably the most talented artist in comics, or one of. And to me, Neil Adams' career is like the shame of comics. It's kind of like as if, what's his name, Coppola, or who made Godfather 1. And then did TV commercials the rest of his career because there was no money in movies.
I see what you mean.
Yeah, really. Yeah, you're not wrong there at all.
That's what Neil Adams was, the most talented superhero guy out there, and then made TV commercials or whatever the rest of his career, and did comics as a hobby. But to me, there are no good Neil Adams comics after about 1970. I don't know what. Pick a year. 6.
Yeah, I would say like Superman versus Muhammad Ali was like his last really great comic.
Right. After that, every Neil Adams comics is done by a hobbyist Neil Adams, and they're not terribly drawn or anything. It's just they have no impact on anyone or anything.
Right.
Well, the USA for Africa comic, I feel killed the Silver Age. Like that was the death knell of the Silver Age, and he did that, right? The one where the one where Batman and Superman go to Ethiopia and try to cure the plague, but they can't because they're comic book characters.
Is that in Heroes for Hunger?
This sentence is ridiculous.
Yeah, Heroes for Hunger. That's what it called. Wasn't that Neil Adams?
Yeah, I think it may have had something to do with it, but that was a commercial. But that wasn't. That was
like one
of the benefit comics.
Yeah, it was a benefit comic. Yeah, and it was a really big deal.
They had a lot of different artists that worked on it.
Yeah, I think
it was an exquisite, also known as an exquisite corpse. That's a good way to look at it. No,
that doesn't even count as a Neil Adams comic to me.
Yeah, I had somehow blamed Neil Adams for all of that, and all he did was the cover. Wow, the human mind is an amazing place.
Yeah, memory is so tricky.
Yeah, each artist drew 2 pages. There's a list here.
Wow, my memory was really wrong here. I forgot that there's David Gibbons and Keith Giffen next to each other, like Ross Andrew, Dursema.
Yeah.
Wow.
George Perez, Kurt Swan, Ernie Colon, Walter Simonson.
Wait. Did you just pronounce those correctly? Do that again.
Ernie Colon.
And Perez? It's Perez?
George Perez, yeah.
Perez and Colon. Well, I'm just going to pretend
this is Paolo, not Tim. Okay.
I learn all my European pronunciations from Paolo, especially in Indian comics these days. There's so many Europeans working.
I still got to teach how to properly pronounce the current artist.
Yeah,
it's Guillaume March, not Julian.
Guillaume March. That's it.
It's not Julian. You always say Julian.
Yeah, Guillaume March. Okay. And there was someone I was pronouncing last week, and Paolo's like, the G is silent. I'm like, I am just not used to silent.
Yeah. the
Jose Luis Garcia Lopez.
His name was Dave
Garcia Lopez.
Keith Iffen.
That's actually a good name.
The U is silent. The
U is silent
after a G with preceding an E or an I.
The U is silent. So it was Geddes or something like that, and I was Guides. That was the artist's name from last week.
Well,
Julium, it is, right? That was
Guillaume. You were pronouncing Julian.
It's French for William.
It's Catalan.
Too.
Catalan.
Yeah, that's why it's
just keep correcting me. I'll learn it someday.
I have to read this comic. I have no idea how I forgot it. Jack Kirby inked by Al Milgrom?
Whoa.
Why not?
And you're sitting here being angry at Neil Adams for this comic for some reason.
Yeah, I see now. This is a cave of wonders. I don't know how you go about getting this comic. I guess you go to a comic book store and try to buy it.
Yeah.
But
I have it on my shelf somewhere still. I'm gonna have to look for it now.
Yeah, the Jack Kirby pages are scripted by Ed Hannigan.
Yeah.
Wow.
That doesn't make any sense. And Joe Cavalieri writes the Joe Kubert pages?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah. There's some real names from the past in here.
It was a benefit comic, so it was threw all the stew in a pot.
Yeah, they sure did.
Oh, these pages might be good.
Just
GM
kind of
Demateis and Marshall Rogers.
If We Are the World. So.
Dursima inked by Alcala. You know, if they're trying, I bet you those are some beautiful pages.
That's a crazy combination.
Wait, is it Dursima?
Dursima has that real thin, slick line, and Alcala just draws the hell out of everything over time. I imagine.
Wait a minute. Klaus Jensen over Ross Andrew?
Yes, why not? I'm here for it.
They just mix and match everybody.
Klaus Janson inking Mobius?
I feel like I've seen that. I feel like that's happened.
I don't think that would work very well.
What would that famous Wolverine drawing by maybe Art Adams came from a benefit book? It was this one that everybody's copied since then. The Wolverine walking like this, with his claws way behind him and his head. Everybody's swiped that drawing. I think that came from one of the benefit books at the time.
Yeah, X-Men Heroes for Hope.
X-Men Heroes for Hope. Okay.
Yeah, they got Stephen King to write a couple of pages.
Wow.
For Bernie Wrightson.
So there was Heroes for Hunger and Heroes for Hope, right?
Yeah. Heroes for Hunger is DC and Heroes for Hope is Marvel.
There we go.
Heroes for Hoboken.
Yeah, I remember getting those when they came out. I still have them somewhere.
George R.R. Martin wrote 2 pages for Herb Trimpe.
Wow.
George R.
Check my database. Pull them out.
Alan Moore wrote 2 pages for Richard Corbin. And Harlan
That's
Ellison
an interesting combination.
Yeah. And Harlan Ellison wrote 2 pages for Frank Miller.
Huh.
And the inker is not Klaus Jensen.
Huh.
It's Bill Sienkiewicz.
It still kills me to this day that at one time there was going to be a Harlan Ellison shadow project that was going to be drawn by Michael Kaluta.
That could have been nice.
Oh, God, it would have been fantastic. But once Harlan found out it was a work-for-hire contract, he backed out.
Okay, so bringing it all around and talking about, like, sort of anti-canonical works, I think that the Helfer Shadow comics were some of the best superhero comics ever. And to me, they completely blew Kaluta's version off the map. I can see Scott's not into this. But, like,
not only no, but no with a capital H.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember.
Sienkiewicz sort of like phoning it in and not doing a real good job, and then they gave it over to Kyle Baker, and Kyle Baker synthesized superhero comics with Peanuts, with the lessons of Charles Schultz. Like it was like a Charles Schultz superhero comic, and it was just so weird and goofy and all over the place. It was such a good comic.
The only Shadow project that was weirder than that was when Archie did a Shadow series in the 60s. Yeah. And they actually tried to turn him into a superhero, like a goofy superhero. And it was sad. It was kind of like, people claim that Highlander 2 never happened. It was kind of like that.
Yeah. Well, I gotta take care of real fast, child rep.
I'm trying to remember when were those Helfer comics? There was
late 80s, maybe?
Was it Chaykin who relaunched the Shadow in the late 80s with a few issues?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it went into the Helfer.
I'm not a fan of Chaykin's take on the Shadow either.
Yeah, Chaykin's 87, 88, and
who? Andy Helfer was the writer, right?
Yeah.
Who was the artist on those ones?
Kyle Baker.
Kyle Baker? Okay. I only may have bought an issue or 2 of those. I don't remember. I don't. That late '80s was when I was kind of out of almost all.
I'm a big Shadow fan, and we don't like to talk about that.
Yeah, but
people. Oh no, I'm that is really one of my favorite comics of all time. But I also like a comic that came out right around that same time, the Legion of Superheroes 5 years later storyline, which
the one that everybody else doesn't like.
Yeah, that's some of the most apocalyptic science fiction you'll ever read in your life.
That's one you have to talk to Tim about, I think.
Yeah, Kyle Baker would have made probably would have made a lot more money if he had gone into newspaper strips instead of corporate comics.
I think he would have gladly done that.
I think he would have made more if he'd gone in animation.
Well, he's a person that comics are criminally underused. That's for sure. Like he's a straight up genius. Sure. I mean, he's the number of times that he's actually changed the industry. What, like 7, 8? I mean, Truth. He did Truth completely by himself. You could tell because he was using Control V a lot. But I mean,
to read Why I Hate Saturn.
That's a fairly good comic. And the Cowboy Wally show is again fairly berserk.
And King David.
Yeah, that was a good one. That was a good one. Holland's Classics Illustrated stuff. And I mean, all this, like even stuff like Plastic Man that people consider to be a miss. But I mean, you can go back to like, he did, when he was a work for hire inker back in the early 80s, he was doing stuff like classic issues and made them good, like Transformers and Spectacular Spider-Man, like excellent stuff. And then he quit to go do the Garbage Pail Kids.
Yeah. You mentioned Classic Illustrated. Am I misremembering, or did Rick Geary not do some of the?
He sure did.
Classic. Okay, I need to track those down because I like his work a lot.
I just pulled out and read one of my Rick Geary graphic novels. Which one was it? The Famous Players, the graphic novel about the murder of William Desmond Howard. Was that his name? The director and. 1922, I think it was.
Yeah.
You mean the one who was killed by William Randolph Hearst?
No, no one knows. It was never solved. It was 1922. He was a big director. And the Famous Players was his acting troupe, and they just found him dead in his bungalow one day.
Oh no, I don't know this one.
Oh yeah, and it's funny because the Great Gatsby book I'm reading, Careless People, Murder, and it's this person. The author is like researching the time that Great Gatsby was written and was set in, because I think it was written from 22 to 24, and then he set it in 1922, and it's doing all this research, going into the newspapers.
Right.
And seeing what it was in the newspapers at the time. And there was a really big murder in the New York papers in 1922 about this couple who was murdered in New Brunswick, New Jersey, and were posed under a tree near a graveyard. And that was like the big news of the day. And I didn't realize the Fitzgerald kept scrapbooks of all their clippings, which are available to people. So this author is tracking down the papers the clippings came from and kind of getting a timeline of what the Fitzgeralds were doing and how it relates to Gatsby and the current events of the time. So it's a really interesting book. So I'm reading a lot about 1922
in book form, right?
Yeah. So I'm reading a lot about 1922, and then just before that, I read The Famous Players, which took place at the same time. I'm like, holy cow!
It actually would be interesting to see Rick Geary's take on Great Gatsby.
Yeah.
Sure. I feel like that exists. Like that must just naturally exist. Like, how can that not be?
He's done a ton of these nonfiction books, but he also did one where he turned. What's her name? Louise Brooks into a detective. So
I remember reading a little article about that one.
That one was pretty good. He just made fictionalized her, the actress. The Great Gatsby.
That's good, Terrence. I like that.
Rick Geary. I like all the Rick Geary stuff. He's one of my favorites.
I like everything Rick Geary's ever done that I've
Yeah.
This show has me buying comics, but now I'm going to be like reading The Great Gatsby over this.
Do you remember The one comic that I think in the 80s really sold me on Rick Geary. I had seen his stuff here and there, like got it in Dark Horse Presents and this and that. But he did, what was it? It was a Flaming Carrot Comics tie-in, the Junior Carrot Patrol.
I have not seen that one.
Oh, if you can find it, it is. I remember that's what made me go, I like this guy.
I can't
And
even remember the
did
first.
this sort of absurdist tie-in to the Flaming Carrot with the Junior Carrot
I'm trying to
Patrol.
think the first place I saw Rick Geary's work, and I'm not really sure.
I want to say he did something for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Yes, he did. Yeah, he did a good Jack the Ripper comic.
Did Rick Geary I think, yeah, Jack the Ripper. I see it right up there. Hold on. I'll
I
show
know
you.
he did some earlier stuff that I came to be aware of later, because I know he did some work. I think it was published in Heavy Metal, and
He just
National Lampoon.
just does these wonderful He gives you the maps and shows you where everything is and all the places that, and just beautiful drawings. It's some of my favorite stuff. I love these. This is he's got the Treasury of Victorian Murder, the Treasury of 20th Century Murder, and then just
he's all over those big books, those Paradox Press or Piranha Press, I forget which. Those big books of like horror and whatever.
Those
he was
books
all
are great.
Right.
Because not only Rick Geary, but there's all kinds of other artists that were great in those too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love that series.
He drew for National Lamp. I think he did. He was one of these guys. This is let's see. Yeah, NBM Comics Lit. Whoops, this side. And he's like got a biography of Trotsky.
Yeah.
All right. I'll take that.
Sure, why not? I don't think it's a complimentary biography if anybody's worried.
But
He's got a biography of J. Edgar Hoover.
But there's a French biography of Frida Kahlo, so you can put the two of them together.
Nice.
Yeah, it's NBM / Comics Lit. So both of them put
Kind of
out.
reminds me.
NBM
I
is
wish
great.
there were more comics on historical stories.
What was that?
I wish there were more historical comics.
Oh yeah. Age of Bronze is one of my favorites.
Age of Bronze.
I wish it was still coming out, but it isn't.
Although he's
a hardworking dude. I never really thought about it, but boy, does that guy have a lot of comics. He's been around for a long time.
Which one?
Yeah, he does. I've got, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 of his graphic novels over there, just his historical one.
Yeah.
Just staring at you. Yeah, I mean, that guy just works and works and works and works. It's very impressive.
Yeah. Oh, The True Death of Billy the Kid. There's an 18th one. It's just bigger than the rest.
I wonder if he's ever worked for Marvel or DC.
Yeah, I don't know. He may have done some pages here or there and like some random anthology.
Yeah, pinup type pages, that kind of thing.
Oh, I forgot about that one. Brian Wood's Rebels was great for historical stuff. I read like an issue or two of it and never got back to it.
Was
What's
that about the American Revolution?
It's about the American Revolution, and it was tracking one person's like relationship to the American Revolution. I don't know how many issues. I think it was only a mini.
Isn't that amazing? How that became like, you know, you tell me you're doing a comic called Rebels, and I immediately want to know: is it American Revolution, which is good, or is it Civil War, which is bad, or is it Star Wars?
Yeah.
Or could it be James Dean?
Yeah, no, that's true. No, I think that one was Marlon Brando.
There's a 19th one. Louise Brooks, Detective.
I had a brain freeze. Correct.
And it takes place during the 1920s when she was an actress. And
Yeah.
Oh my God!
she goes on a detective story.
Talking about historical, this fiction. You know, it would have been perfect to do a Sherlock Holmes story in comics format. It would be Gary Gianni.
Yeah. Well, Gary Gianni is sort of like Alfredo Alcala combined with Richard Gere. You know?
Yeah, Gary is really more like, what's his name? Joseph Clement Cole and Franklin Booth. Joseph Clement Cole. He was an illustrator. He very much worked in a pen and ink style like Franklin Booth did.
Cool.
The cock crows at midnight.
Yeah, the rooster. He's really excited to be home.
Please tell me that your rooster is named Philip K. Dick.
Yeah, that would be pretty good. No, the rooster is actually named Democratic Party, so it's still funny, but not the same funny. Fortunately, you go through when you have chickens, you go through roosters. So I'll look into that later. For future roosters, they're obnoxious animals. They are.
You know, you're talking about Rebels as a title. Isn't it funny how certain words have a connotation of what you think they should be before you even see what the project's actually about?
Yeah, well, that's your job. You know, that's you're writing a comic. You want to come up with a title that makes people want to read it and attaches to other things. It's just that Rebels is a sort of troubled one right now because I live in the South and
so do I. I live in Virginia, which is Civil War, central. So
yeah. I mean, I try to avoid talking about violence on the internet, but I really do not like the CSA people at all. Right. Very peeved. We won. They should get over it.
I'll tell you what, you think that's bad. It is bad, but also there are still people out there trying to fight the Crusades.
Yeah.
And when you come across that's one of my favorite topics of history, especially the Third Crusade. And anytime that somebody does a YouTube video or a documentary or something, the comments from both pro-Frankish and pro-Saracen, those are nuts. I mean,
we're talking about something that happened 900 years ago, right?
Kill each other,
Yeah.
Like
the Third Crusade was the 1100s, right?
Yeah. 1190.
I read a history of the Knights Templar a few years ago. That was pretty interesting.
It is. It's very interesting stuff. Now, a lot of that, later on turns into conspiracy theory.
Oh, yeah.
Pre Dan Brown reading about the Templars, there was some interesting things going on back in those days.
Yeah. If it comes down to if the King of France wanted your land and wanted you gone, you were gone.
Oh, it wasn't just France. It was anywhere feudal. Yeah. If they want you gone, you're gone one way or the other.
Yeah, they made the mistake of building up too much money. That's always a mistake in government is to have so much money that you start to look like a target. Yeah. When they fully funded the post office's pension system, they just created an unstoppable target. And I think it was the same way with the Templars.
Yeah. Have you read Rex Mundi? That just reminded me of. That's a good alternate history comic.
No, I haven't.
I've read of it, but I've never read it.
I've talked about it recently, but I can't remember what it was called. Hold on, I'll just look it up. I've got it on Goodreads.
Rex Mundi takes place in an alternate history in the 30s, where the royal houses of Europe never fell.
Mm-hmm.
So that they're all still sort of these constitutional monarchy, and it's all about the politics and stuff going on. Plus, there's a conspiracy and a little bit of magic.
Yeah, but the writer kind of messed up with the POD because the actual POD is that the Charles Martel never manages to establish a foothold in the Iberian Peninsula. So after the Battle of Roncesvalles, the Reconquista does not move forward. So that's the actual point of departure. But all the action focuses on the conflict between the Franks and the Germans. So they kind of miss the big point that it is not conquering the Iberian Peninsula for Christianity in the 12th century.
Wait, what was this? I've heard of this.
Rex Mundi.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
It kind of uses bits from the that movie with Tom Hanks, which was a novel.
Oh no, it was around before then.
Yeah, it was around the same.
Oh, you're talking
time.
about. You're talking about the Da Vinci Code.
Yeah, the Da Vinci
Yeah.
Code.
It was from
Yeah,
the Henry
They're part of the Illuminati books. Man,
I think they both read the same book about the same thing.
It all comes from the Henry Lincoln stuff, the Holy Blood and the Holy Grail.
Yeah.
He was the one who discovered it, or rather invented it, whichever.
The second.
But yeah, they both came from that same source, Henry Lincoln. It's just that the Da Vinci Code made it so popular.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
That's
really.
why everybody knew it from.
I read a pretty good comic about the Templars recently, but I can't find what it was. It was pretty much straightforward.
Was it the Peter J. Tomasi one?
It might have. What's that one called?
No one seems to remember. I don't know that one.
There we go. I'll just...
The last Templar comic I can remember was called Mice Templar.
Uh-oh.
Oh.
Mine in the Comics does not like the jacket buttons on the wrong side of I forgot about that. He's mentioned that many times.
I forgot about that.
He's the expert has spoken. Sorry,
if you can ignore the jackets in Rex Mundi, forget the point of departure for the alternate history. There was
if I could read it right to left, I just pretend it's manga.
Well, that's the problem. They messed up the point of departure for the alternate history, and now the buttons all button on the wrong side.
Yep.
Now, do you know why buttons on men's shirts opened the way they did?
Nope.
To facilitate sword fighting.
Ah.
So you can pull out your scabbard with your right hand while you unbutton your shirt with your left.
There was some good sword fighting in that time loop movie I watched today. Just as an aside, there was some good sword fighting.
If I was stuck in a time loop like Groundhog Day, for sure, getting good at fighting with swords would be. I'd be awesome at stage combat.
Well, if you sat through that 12:01 p.m., it was much sadder because the time loop he was stuck in was an hour.
Oh yeah.
So he would come back every day, sitting on the park bench at lunchtime, and he only had till the end of lunch. So he was desperate to try and figure out what was going on because he only had an hour that he lived over and over. That was much more of a hard.
If you're aware of that you can order like the best food in the world have something different every day, and have
as long as they can make it in an hour and get it to you.
Yeah. Well, he's in New York City, but yeah, exactly. Yeah. You're gonna get tired of that same hot dog place.
He wanted to get out of the time loop.
Right.
I wouldn't even.
But it's tough to get out of a time loop in an hour. In a day, you've got much more time to do whatever you want to do.
Yeah, you can goof off, rob a bank, do whatever.
Or you could film that series 24, which is a lot longer than 24 hours.
That was a weird show.
All right, we can probably wrap up now. It's 8:47. We'll stop broadcasting live and say goodbye to each other. All right, everybody have a good night out there.
Thanks for the invitation, yeah.
Sayonara.
Glad to have you here chatting. Yeah. We will catch everyone out there next week.
Yeah, we'll catch you all.